Hello again, friends, and you are our friends, and welcome back to another special Tuesday presentation of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru. We have your questions, we have wrestling news, and of course, what so many of you have been waiting for, Jim's review of AEW's All Out pay-per-view spectacular, and boy was it spectacular. I'm the great Brian Last, your host, and of course the man who leads the drive-thru, the man who pops through the window and punches out the teller, the Louisville Lip himself, Mr. Jim Cornette.
It's not a teller, it's a cashier. Much like, I don't know that this is a presentation. It's a presentation now, huh? And I'm looking up spectacular right as we speak. Hold on here one second.
Let me just add, spectacular was sarcastic. It was
S-P.
It was a sarcastic spectacular.
It was definitely a spectacle. So specimen, that's a good word for it. It was a specimen of something. Okay, spectacle. A remarkable or impressive sight. Well, it was remarkable. I'm not sure I was impressed. Lavish public performance or display. It was definitely a display. Also a pair of eyeglasses, and anybody who saw anything good about it needs those. Spectacular is of the nature of a spectacle or sensational. Specter, a ghostly apparition, phantom, a haunting or disturbing prospect. The specter of nuclear war is a haunting or disturbing prospect. There's the specter of another AEW pay-per-view is a little bit more troubling to me than the thought, as I put my dictionary back, of nuclear war. Oh, for Christ's sake. You know, although here's the thing, overall, we're going to talk about a few other things first, but overall, I think maybe now I've figured it out. Except now I've figured it. I'm not sure why they're mad at me, Brian. The AEW folks and their fans, I'm not sure why they're mad at me, because I'm doing what they want me to do. I'm laughing at them because nobody, help me out with this. Would anybody be doing what they're doing unless they wanted people to laugh at them? So I'm laughing at them, but they get mad at me when I laugh at them. I'm doing what they want me to do, certainly. This can't be a serious effort. This can't be a serious effort. Herb Abrams became Bill Watts on pay-per-view next to fucking I don't understand. What reaction are they trying to get from people?
I think they want you to laugh with them, not necessarily laugh at them.
But they're not laughing. They're too busy breaking each other's fucking necks. Anyway, I've had social upheaval this past week or 10 days. My whole goddamn personal schedule and social interaction has been out the window. If you haven't been listening to the shows lately, shame on you. Bad cult member. But you know that about 10 days ago or so, as the crow flies, as we record this now, my entire local post office window crew was quarantined. And since then, we have been shipping out the Cornette's collectibles packages at different suburban post offices with low traffic where I can't be confined around a bunch of possibly COVID-ridden people while I'm trying to, and also finding a post office with more than one window clerk at a time so I don't start a fucking riot when I go in with 84 fucking packages. And I've realized that now every day is Groundhog Day. I'm in a state of limbo here as far as what's going on. I always have everything planned out. But now this has been a bump in the road. It's been a goddamn... But anyway, as to the customers who I'm concerned about, if you ordered about 2 weeks ago, your shit's pretty much in the mail. Maybe even 10 days ago. It's come from different post offices at different times on different trips and smaller batches and was distributed out differently. But if you've ordered in the last 8 or 10 days or so or thereabouts, I'm proud and pleased to announce that life goes back to normal at the end of this week. And we've got a bunch of stuff ready that will be, so everything should be up to date by this coming weekend. But I didn't realize how disruptive that this would be of my normal my normal routine, Brian, and my only social interaction in person is with the fine folks at the United States Postal Service.
Have you made any new friends? Obviously, in your post office, you know the Hunchback, you know Bree.
Now, no, I've not been looking for new friends. No, I've been looking for an outlet. I found one post. They had 2 window clerks. I'll tell you this. But the way you go in, instead of being able to go up in your own line, you had people not only in front and back of you who were not practicing social distancing, even though they wore masks, but you had people on the sides of you also. I was fucking trapped like a rat, got an anxiety attack, and I retreated to fight another day. A lot of fucking crowded people out there. But anyway, everything gets back to normal this weekend. And we should announce also on this program, as we have on the experience, that the JimCornette.com Cornette's Collectibles store will close on September 15th for 2 weeks, not only for my birthday and for my mental state and peace of mind so I can get a brief relief, but also to start restocking and getting set for the holiday sale season. There will be a couple of new items, I'm sure, that will be popular with the fine folks, and that begins on October 1st. So either get your orders in this week because they will be rushed out at the end of this week and early next week, or you're going to have to wait 2 weeks until the holiday season. Hopefully there'll be no more personnel disruptions. It wasn't a bottleneck at my end, Brian. It was a bottleneck at the shipping source. I did get an email that somebody got an international package again in 9 days. So now the range has been 9 days to 4 months to the same country from the same place.
You know, by the way, I should bring it up here. We get a lot of people sending in questions to the drive-thru email, of course, CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. But lately, due to the commentaries that you've dished out on the show, we've had a lot of people thanking us who either work for the post office or have family that work for the post office.
Oh, that's true. I didn't know where you were going. But yes, I've gotten those as well, emails and everything. Keep going.
That was all I was going to say. A lot of people are really grateful that people are speaking up for the post office and the many people that work there.
I was agreeing with you. And yes. And well, because once again, it's guaranteed in the Constitution. All these nuts want to run around, go to the mall with fucking AK-47s, but they don't care when somebody's trying to disrupt the post office for their own criminal gain. I think not. We will not have that.
Those are people who don't appreciate the mail. They never sat around on a Saturday waiting for the Observer to show up.
Well, yeah, you know what was better? You never sat around back in the 70s waiting for a brown paper-wrapped package of old wrestling magazines to arrive in the mail.
Where were you ordering them from?
I actually got in on the back issue department at Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the London Publishing. When I first started buying the magazines, they still had back issues to the mid-'60s. That's where I got my wrestling, several issues of my Wrestling Illustrated 65-66 run directly from. That's why they're uncirculated. They were at the time only like 8 years old. They were still in the office up there. They used to send them out for 50 cents or $1.
Wow.
Yeah. See, try to make me jealous.
Why did they discontinue that magazine, Wrestling Illustrated, the one from the 60s?
Apparently I never asked, so just assuming it just wasn't the right time. They were doing a color not only color cover, but also a color fold out on the inside cover. It was like a pre-runner of the Wrestler and Inside Wrestling and then Pro Wrestling Illustrated. But it was a, real nice magazine for the time. I guess it didn't go. It was before Bill Apter. It was a Stanley Weston publication. Lasted about 6 issues. And then they took about a year and a half off and started The Wrestler. And then that lasted. So who knows? It's a mystery, a conundrum, if you will. Well, this is your fucking show, right?
It is. It's
I got something, though. You don't even know about this.
I guess it's not my show.
Well, it is until I take it away from you. This completely bypassed you. You were editing and everything. I got heat on Twitter again yesterday. Not like trending heat. Well, I don't know. They've changed the layout of Twitter, and I don't see where the shit's trending anymore. But I think this was just a subset of really stupid people and like 3 people trying to actually talk some sense to them. But I guess it helps. And for the new listeners, we may have gone over this before, but just for their sakes, because a lot of people, when I'll tweet something they don't like, they'll say, put your phone down, Cornette, which indicates to me they're not regular listeners of the program, or they would know that I do not have a smartphone, that none of you are going to live long enough for anybody to talk me into getting a smartphone. And when I tweet, it's on my computer. And I tweet when I get up in the morning, come up to the office. If I have to print some things out or some emails or orders or whatever, or have to look through some things, I check and see if the goddamn world's blown up yet. What the wrestling news is, I'll zip through the Twitter and I scroll down and I either retweet things that I enjoy or stuff making a piece of shit out of Donald Trump or our various programs and YouTube things. I'll retweet that. And I'll find Republicans that pop their head up every once in a while, and I'll block them because that's a rule. If you can fly under the radar, but if you admit in public you're a Republican, or especially a Trump supporter, if you say you're a Republican, but he's still a piece of shit, then that's good enough. But if you actually act like you believe in this shit, you're instantly blocked. And the cosplay wrestling fans, I block them. And then sometimes somebody makes a smart ass comment, I'll fucking joust back at it. And then I go on about the rest of my day. And unless I'm waiting for you to retweet something or I have to come up here and print something else out or whatever, I don't look at Twitter again. So this is the process, right? We've established this. So I get up yesterday morning as we're taping this, and I'm scrolling down through the thing and blah, blah, blah. And somebody says, hey, Jim Cornette, fuck you. So I wrote back, blow me. And I continue on. And then I get up and go downstairs, and I'm doing a bunch of things over the afternoon. I got out with the pole saw this past weekend too and everything. Anyway, I come back and I get on Twitter and there's all this shit. And you can tell because it's all from the same gene pool, because every single tweet has hearts and flowers and their favorite wrestler's name figured into it some kind of way, or their picture. And chances are, if it's a girl wrestler's picture, then it's a guy. But if it's a guy wrestler's picture, it's a girl, because there's stands of people. You know this phrase now, they got stands. And they're all fucking blown up. Oh my God, we're reported, you horrible pervert, you disgusting human being. You find out, I'm like, what are they fucking talking about? And one of's like, I've reported this to @FBI. And I'm, what the fuck? And then I get down far enough that somebody has fucking retweeted in the screen the whole thing, where I've said, blow me. It is whoever it was. Now, apparently it's a girl, has written back and said, I'm 16. And so now Jim Cornette's soliciting sex from a minor, and they're calling Chris Hansen, and they're calling the FBI, and they're adding the goddamn Justice Department and fucking whatever, because I'm trying to fucking solicit sex from an underage minor. And then I say, how the fuck do they know how old she is, right? If it says I'm 16, anybody can say that. So somebody says, well, if you spent 2 minutes going to the profile, like somebody says, fuck you to me on Twitter, and I'm going to spend 2 minutes checking out their profile. So I wrote her back. I said, well, in that case, you ought to goddamn watch your filthy mouth. Your parents ought to teach you better when speaking to adults. And then they went bullshit over that. Oh, God, now he knows she's a kid, and he didn't delete the tweet. I don't know how to delete tweets. And besides that, I still meant it. Not in a sexual way, but in a blow me way, as in fuck off, which is what it was meant for in the first place. And I swear, for about 12 hours or so, you get all the same, and you can tell them a mile away. As I mentioned, they've got the hearts and flowers and all the little pictures on the thing and all of their favorite wrestlers' names in the thing. And they're just horrified of, what a pervert. He's soliciting underage minors for sexual purposes. No, what I'm doing is telling off a smart-mouthed brat, regardless of what age. And I will do the same thing if I happen to have the time and see it, if you make a smart-ass comment. But I'm sorry, I left that out of the block column. Also, if you just make a smart-ass comment that I don't particularly like, I'll either block you or I'll tell you to blow me, and then I'll block you. But don't take it sexually. Oh, my God. If you don't want the answer, don't ask the question. And if you don't want to get smacked back, don't smack first. A couple people actually got on there, were telling these people, like, I don't even know if they're real people or they're just the fucking bot brigade again. But a couple people were trying to say, you realize that she out of the blue just said, hey, fuck you. And he's a fucking celebrity that gets thousands of tweets a day and he don't give a fuck who she is and has no idea. And oh no, oh goddamn, what's he told her? Or what she told him? Yeah, then you're just a smart-mouthed little bitch, aren't you? Don't speak to adults that way. Oh, you know, nothing would, here's something else that would not fucking get on the air today. I was watching this over the weekend as I was doing paperwork. The television was on. Sundance Network, I believe. A 3-hour block of Hogan's Heroes. Those fun-loving Nazis. You think that would fly to poor Sergeant Schultz? John Banner would be unemployed. The people would be committing hate crimes against noted character actor John Banner because he was the fun-loving and rotund Sergeant Schultz. For fuck's sake. They wouldn't even notice. They always made the Nazis the fucking buffoons and the Americans were the smart people that were running things. And that was only 20 years after the war. 50 years later, the goddamn current Nazis have spoiled things for those fun-loving World War II Nazis. They're such pricks, you can't even make fun of the old Nazis anymore. Here's a trivia question for you, Brian.
All right.
What, and it's not even the one that I told you I was going to ask you. This is one I just thought of because of what I'm talking about. What set of WWE Tag Team Champions was inspired by Hogan's Heroes?
What tag team champions were inspired by Hogan's Heroes?
Well, not that they won the tag team title, but the name of the team, I should say. What name of the team of the WWF Tag Team Champions was inspired by Hogan's Heroes?
I'm not sure.
La Resistance.
Oh, no shit.
Because when Rene Dupree came to OVW and he had that French accent that was thicker than fucking mud, and, you know, he's going to do a promo putting himself over and talking about how he's, the prodigy and the wrestling in his genes because his father was Emile Dupree and everything. And he's so fucking French. I said at the end of it, say, Viva la Resistance, because that's what LeBeau said. In fucking Hogan's Heroes, LeBeau was the fucking Frenchman who did the cooking. Viva la Resistance. So therefore, then Renee said that, they fucking sent the goddamn tape to fucking, one of the writers heard it and it tickled him, as it was supposed to, because it was just a fucking offhand remark by a heel, and they named the whole goddamn team La Resistance because of LeBeau, Corporal LeBeau. That's where we were at with the writers back in those days. You didn't know that.
I did not know that, no.
Well, do you know that now?
I know it now.
Here's the trivia question that I was going to ask you, that I found this out because I didn't know it. But Steve emailed us and said, hi, Jim, you and I are the same age. So I can't give this away. The next line would give away the answer. But he gives the card for the very first card at the Philadelphia Spectrum. When they opened the Philadelphia Spectrum to wrestling in August 3rd, 1974, it was his first live event. Do you know who appeared on that event that you will never guess in a million years that we have just talked about on at length on the program very recently?
Bullet Bob Armstrong.
God damn you.
Nice try.
How did you know that?
Because I'm Brian Last. I know these things.
I didn't even know that.
It's his only appearance in the Northeast.
Johnny Valiant beat Bob Armstrong because the Florida TV was syndicated and it was on in Philadelphia at the time on one of the independent stations, and they brought in Ron Fuller, Bob Armstrong, Don Morocco, and Cowboy Bobby Duncombe. Holy mackerel. And Ron Fuller had to work with Kobayashi Remember Shozo Kobayashi?
Strong Kobayashi, yeah.
Strong Kobayashi, and Kobayashi went over. I'm sure it was political, obviously, but he was Inoki's right-hand man at that point in time, right?
I wouldn't say that. Remember, he was
one of the right-hand men?
Well, he was the champion in the IWE, and then he left and had to match with Inoki, which was one of Inoki's first big matches in New Japan. Inoki, the main star of New Japan, versus the IWE's Strong Kobayashi, and then he joined New Japan. But I don't think I would classify him as one of Inoki's right-hand men.
Well, one of the top guys at one time, but then he wasn't that close.
Yes.
They weren't that close personally. But anyway,
right-hand man.
Sakaguchi. But that had to be a heck of a fucking experience for poor Ron Fuller to go up there and have fucking work with that goddamn stiff bastard. Anyway.
How many of those guys, though? I mean, whenever they would bring guys into the Garden, and the Garden brought in a lot of guys off the Florida TV because it aired in the New York area, but even guys that weren't in Florida would come to the Garden to get their big showcase match, and they'd get put in a ring with someone who they just couldn't work with.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it happened all the time. Was it Kevin Von Erich? They put him in there with Johnny Rods, or am I thinking of someone else?
I don't know, but look at these style clashes. They get Don Morocco in 1974, at the time, probably one of the best athletic workers, trim and shape, surfer guy, right? High spot fucking bump taker. They put him with Handsome Jimmy Valiant. Because the Valiant Brothers were the tag team champions then, right? Or at least in the territory as a tag team. And Bob had to work with Johnny, because at least Johnny was the bland Valiant brother. At least Jimmy had the fucking charisma. But Duncombe, they were bringing him in for a run because he won the Battle Royal that night. So, but those were some style clashes for the guys down south. Also, Killer Kowalski beat Bruno Sammartino by countout in the main event, for those of you keeping track. Anyway.
Battle of the Wigs.
So I've had that trivia fucking question for you for a week, thinking, well, I'll stump him. This is just absolutely unheard of. And you instantly fucking... I'm crossing this off. What do you got?
Well, I'm glad that you didn't place a bet on whether or not you'd be able to stump me with some trivia.
Well, I'll tell you know what? I thought about doing that. As a matter of fact, I was so sure, I was so convinced, but that just goes to show you there's no such thing as a sure thing, but the closest thing to a sure thing, ladies and gentlemen, is going to our friends at MyBookie. Because winning season has returned at MyBookie. It means doubling your first deposit. Survivor, super contests, and squares at MyBookie. Winning season means hitting all your parlays and props and then putting your feet up and watching your team trounce their rivals. And I would love to picture that in my mind if I knew what a parlay or a prop was. But folks, if you know how to bet, we've talked about it. Me and Brian, we got no fucking idea. We're whistling stranger in paradise. But for you folks out there who follow the NFL season, your favorite teams, you want to bet, you want to make money, you've got an intuition about this, use promo code JCE and double your first deposit at MyBookie. New players get up to $1,000 in free play, and it's designed to add more excitement to the sports you love and the games that you bet on. From live betting to championship futures, every play you want to make is waiting for you at MyBookie. And maybe one of you can tell me and Brian how to play along. But it's simple, according to what they say. Make your picks, win big, and collect your cash. I just want to know how to collect the cash. I want somebody else to make my picks. Use the promo code JCE, double your first deposit. Your winning season begins today only at MyBookie. If they're mine, wouldn't they be our bookie? Because we're all of us are using them.
Technically, I assume.
Technically.
All right. Well,
I dare you to edit that.
I'm going to leave that in. We have reviews. Do we want to go to the review and ask questions afterwards? What do you want to do here? Everyone's waiting for this review.
All right, goddammit, let's just come out with it. Let's just come out with it. Because I was in a bad mood anyway this weekend when I got out in the yard, as I mentioned to you, and I used the pole saw. And I was trying to cut some things out of the trees, some dead limbs and things, so my yard guy could come and haul the shit off, and my shoulders ached. I got back in the house. I got in the tub. That didn't help. You know what finally helped me? I'll just go ahead and do this and get this out of the way. The only thing that helped me was the Omax CryoFreeze. I rubbed that all over my I couldn't lift my arms night before last. And I got up the next day and I was, oh my God. And I rubbed the Omax CryoFreeze on, and I wasn't turning cartwheels because I haven't done one of those since I was 14. But I was definitely being able to move my arms, comb my hair, drink, use the bathroom, lift the toilet seat up, all that stuff I couldn't do because I soaked my shoulders in the Omax CryoFreeze. And folks, now more than ever, it is critical to take care of yourself and avoid unnecessary trips to the doctor or the chiropractor or the masseuse. Happy ending or no, you want to stay away from all these people. So you can work on yourself right at home and get pain relief delivered to your door. The CryoFreeze CBD pain relief roll-on. It's all natural and topical. It ices out the pain. We've talked about it. You can roll it on your back, your neck, your hands. It blocks the pain, reduces the inflammation. It improves the muscle and joint flexibility. We love Omax and all CryoFreeze and all their products here at the show. That's why we plug it, and we've had so many of the listeners say they love it too. That's why you get 20% off a 1-month supply of Omax CryoFreeze and free shipping. It also, any product site-wide, 20% off, same deal. Just go to Omax, OMAX health.com today and enter the code DRIVE. OmaxHealth.com and enter the code DRIVE for 20% off everything and free shipping. Just roll it over where it hurts and ice out the pain. No messy creams, horrible, stinchy fragrances that smell like grisly death. This stuff will get you through it. OmaxHealth.com, enter the code DRIVE. 20% and free shipping. They're generous, Brian.
Very generous.
Very generous. That's what I'm thinking. All right, anyway, I needed to talk about pain relief before we talk about this pay-per-view.
Well, of course, this review that everyone's been waiting for is of the AEW All Out pay-per-view event, Saturday night, September 5th, 2020. Now, we should
date which will live in infamy.
We should note the previous COVID-era pay-per-view event that AEW did. The AEW fans really enjoyed that event. A lot of people like us thought that the stadium embarrassment match was garbage, but a lot of the hardcore AEW
Football
fans...
field bleepery. See? You thought I was going to curse there.
That was very impressive. Open your beer.
I'm opening another Sprite Zero. This is going to be a strenuous exercise.
How many Sprite Zeros do you think are going to be needed for this review?
All I know is I'm eating 3 double cheeseburgers after it's over with for sitting through. I have to promise myself something. First of all, I was going to split this thing up because I knew it would be lengthy. And so I decided Sunday afternoon I would watch the first half, and that way I might be more receptive to the second half on Monday morning before we recorded this. I watched the first segment and turned the whole goddamn thing off and spent all night trying to decide whether I should watch the rest of it or whether I should just disappoint people and take care of my own mental health. What are people saying about this thing? I have, as I said, earlier in the program, I've been out this weekend with the pole saw, been doing some things in the yard and trying to get some things done. I haven't lived on the internet. Is somebody making excuses for any of this, or specifically the tooth and nail match?
I don't know if anyone's making excuses for the tooth and nail match. Other things happened on the show that distracted everyone from the garbage that was the tooth and nail match.
From the horribleness and awfulness of it. Is anybody making excuses for this program in general, for why that people were charged money to watch this, and why that nobody got their shit straight?
There are certain excuses being made by certain people. However, unlike the previous COVID-era pay-per-view that AEW did, this one is one where even AEW fans are saying this pay-per-view wasn't that great. Some are saying, well, I like the matches, but ... And the fact that there's a but there tells you everything. It's hard to
Yeah, it's hard to watch.
It's hard to, no, I think it's hard for AEW
to watch
fans.
A dream die.
I think it's hard for AEW fans to see this pay-per-view and pretend like all is rosy in AEW land. This was an embarrassing pay-per-view event.
Well,
if I may say so.
Well, you may say so, and we will talk about this. I don't know whether I'm embarrassed to have been involved in professional wrestling. I don't know whether I'm embarrassed for the people that were involved in whatever this was. I don't know whether I'm embarrassed for the people who bought the pay-per-view and can't write it off as a business expense. I don't know who I'm embarrassed for. I got plenty of blame to go around. They made a big deal of announcing a couple of days before this show, hey, the tooth and nail fucking match was going to be on the pre-show, but we want to give people the best wrestling show we can. So we're putting it on the pay-per-view. Is Tony Khan a drug addict? Is Tony Khan on hallucinogenic drugs?
Not that I'm aware of, and I don't know.
Had they seen this beforehand and then made that decision? Because obviously it didn't happen live. So did they tape this fiasco, commit this thing, and believe me, commit is probably the best word, commit this thing to video and then decide to put it on the pay-per-view?
I believe, from what I've been told, Tony Khan, as well as Jerry Lynn, were at the location when they filmed this.
Well, God, there was a lot of people there when Kennedy got shot. That doesn't mean they had anything to do with it. Poor Jerry Lynn, don't slander him. Tony Khan, I can believe. I would imagine if Jerry Lynn was there, he was probably, parking the cars when all this went on. I would have figured out some excuse to get away from it. But so there was a pre-show, which I did not watch because I could tell it was a pre-show and I knew this fucking main show was going to be long enough anyway. Before we get to this fiasco, was there anything else on the pre-show we should be aware of?
There was a truly atrocious Jelly Nutella match where, once again, he showed that he just is not very good as a professional wrestler. The guy he was wrestling, who apparently is someone who's been featured on Dark, I'm not familiar with Serpentico or whatever his name was, he was equally as bad. It was a real amateur hour match.
That's what everybody gets for free to try to make you decide to buy the thing, right?
That was one of the puzzling things. You would think you'd put something hot on the pre-show to get people into buying the pay-per-view event. This match was so bad, and just saying indie isn't correct. It was just amateur hour. It was really, really bad, but we've talked about it. Jelly Nutella is one of the few people in AEW that AEW fans and haters are united over the fact that he doesn't belong there, that he's not good. He's really, really not good. What
was it that they had the feed going to Fight TV? I read this, that they went to a break when Jelly was, that's when he was impersonating his cousin Pippi Longstocking. And JR said to Tony Schiavone while they thought they were in break, but they were live on Fight TV, why do they keep booking this kid as a fucking babyface? I said, I'm looking at a heel. Because look at the state of this guy. When you look at him, he's disreputable in every way and has no endearing features. So why would you book him as a babyface? Just because they booked him as a babyface on some fucking shows in closets in front of other people that look even worse than he does. So naturally, he would look good by comparison. But anyway, so basically nothing on the pre-show of any consequence that anybody gives a shit about.
No, there was that match, which was horrible, and then there was a private party match, which was a private party match. And then they bring out Jim Ross for like the last minute of the pre-show. And I would actually think it would be important to have Jim Ross there for as much of the pre-show as possible, because you want people to see him who aren't familiar with AEW and go, oh my God, Jim Ross. What's he doing there?
I'll tell you I don't have any inside knowledge that JR has said this, but from my perspective as being someone in his age category and not close to his fame level, but certainly a bigger fame level than anybody else involved in this proceeding. If I was JR, I'd say, bring me out right at the end of the show so you can tease me coming out, because I've got to sit out there for 4 hours and figure out something to talk about with this shit unfolding in front of me. So if it might better use JR, sell the goddamn show on the pre-show and then let JR leave so he's not embarrassed by what he has to call on what you got to pay for. I don't fucking know. I want to talk about this thing, the tooth and nail match between Dr. Britt Baker with her assistant Reba and Big Swole. which was cinematic in nature. And to use that, they said this was going to be a cinematic match. Brian, I have shot better shit. I'm not even talking about content. I'm just talking about better lit, better edited shit with a camcorder and Smoky Mountain Wrestling myself for free. This was an embarrassment, not only from content, but to be aired. They were trying to imitate the WWE cinematic, dramatic acting. Now we know Big Swole can't work or act. The TV crew can't light, can't shoot, or edit. This was a cable access level, like a parody of if you found some women who had never really seen wrestling before, but you told them have a movie fight in this office and use some wrestling moves in it. Is the only way I can... Whether this was faker than silly or sillier than fake, it was still large amounts of both. Horrible overacting, or just bad acting to begin with. Sloppy play wrestling work, if you can call it that, in a dentist's office. Hitting each other with the goddamn framed pictures in... They were breaking, even though the fucking... They're not even, I don't want them, they're women. I don't want them to hit each other with shit that they can fucking put each other's eyes out with and bust each other open with. But if you're going to goddamn have a fight, hit each other with the shit for real and have it gimmicked or something. It was both fake and fake at the same time. It was fake on the surface of it and it looked fake. It was insulting to anybody, wrestling fan or no. Even if it was on a free show, the announcers made fun of it because what could they do? Or they just laid out entirely because what could they do?
Well, can I stop you there? And this may be a topic later in the show, but the announcers make fun of, just sit back and laugh at so many things throughout the show. And I get it. We're doing something here on this show. We're critiquing and reviewing this pay-per-view event. We could shit on it. We could make jokes about it. We could laugh about it. The announcers shouldn't be doing that. I don't care what it is.
No. Well, here's the thing. I agree with that, but I can't agree in this instance. Because last year when I did commentary for MLW, there was some great, exciting stuff, and there was also either some of the young folks who wanted to go 100 miles an hour or the lucha stuff that you sometimes couldn't figure out what to say, but I didn't openly mock or laugh at. You could find something because I remember I said on the program, at least they're really trying and they're not assing off on purpose. And so I did not have ultimately a problem with my voice and face being on that show, because even if all of it was not executed, 100% according to the Eddie Graham playbook, they were not just being stupid and phony for the sake of it. And therefore, you work with them in whatever way you can. You cover up the misses, or you try to give some insight into the mindset of why somebody would do something that on the surface of it looks basically like something that you would be crazy to do. But, well, he thought this. You try to do all the little announcer tricks and help them. But with this, there's nothing to fucking help. It's a goddamn travesty. It's an insult. And at that point, if it was me, at this point, JR knows what he's in for. I understand that JR doesn't want to sacrifice his entire career by calling this like it should be serious. But that give the fucking best announcer in the goddamn business something serious to call, so he's not embarrassed to talk about it. Yes, I believe the announcers should be, while they're on the show, should be everything a professional that they can be. But when you're looking at something like this, then it's like, I don't want to get any on me. Maybe I'll have credibility to actually sell something another day when they try to get their shit together. That's what maybe the mindset is. The only one that's excited about any of this shit is Excrement, because he's excited to be there again. Anyway, the finish of this thing Britt Baker goes for the fucking, after she's tried to put a power drill and they've done all the other thing, whatever the fuck. Britt Baker goes to get swole with the hypodermic of Novocaine, but accidentally gets it jumped or stabbed into her leg, and her leg goes numb. And Reba was screaming over and over, "Oh my God, you've stabbed her," while she's standing there with a banana peel on her fucking head. Not even just actually splayed out like a little cap that she didn't have time to fucking knock off. And then Swole doesn't just hit Reba with the goddamn diploma, but hands Reba the diploma so she can hold it in front of her own face so that Swole can hit that, and then puts Britt Baker out with the nitrous. And the real question is Tony Khan on the nitrous? How dare you, sir? How dare you ask people to pay for this? How dare you, sir, ask people to watch this under the guise of watching a professional wrestling program? How dare you, sir, perpetrate this on all the people that have given their blood, sweat, and tears to keep this industry going for the past 125 years so that you can shit on the airwaves? How dare you, sir? Unprofessionalism. So, we are instituting the tooth and nail rule, which is this. Remember how I've said, okay, Britt Baker has grown on me with the heel thing and the promos, and I get a kick out of her and Reba. I will never watch anything again involving Dr. Britt Baker, Reba, or Big fucking Swole. Never, ever. I don't care if they bring Britt Baker to the fucking WWE and she fucking knocks out Brock Lesnar with 6 F5s in a row. That they did this should have revoked their membership in the goddamn wrestling fraternity, which they're not really in anymore anyway, because there is no such thing as a goddamn wrestling fraternity, the brotherhood of people inside the business that protected it and respected it. There's just a bunch of goddamn clowns playing in it. But if it was possible to revoke a wrestling license over a single performance, every single motherfucker involved in this, and Mike Posey, the referee, don't ever let me see you in person again just for fucking being there.
Did you want him to quit his job?
Yes.
How's he going to support his family?
Oh, for God's sake. He picked up a goddamn referee spot in a goddamn nail salon or a dentist office in suburban fucking Atlanta somewhere. I think he'll fucking be fine.
I will say, I know you hate the term performer, but I'm going to use it here in this case. Out of all the women's wrestlers in all of wrestling, Big Swole is the worst performer in the entirety of professional wrestling. She's garbage in the ring. Her promos, her attacking wrestlers when she's sitting at ringside, her performance here, this whole Britt Baker Big Swole feud. This is awful. This was the worst way you could have started this pay-per-view event.
If this had been done right, it would have still sucked. But it was done low budget, outlaw, rotten, stagey, and awkward. And in a simple-minded fashion, for once they needed writers. Imagine, Jim Cornette just said they needed some fucking writers. Tooth and nail rule.
Nobody writes my TV but me.
Well, nobody makes my rules but me, and Britt Baker, Reba, and Big Swole are disqualified for their participation in this from my life ever. Then we had the Lucha Express, Jungle Boy and Dino Douche against Road Warrior and Balding Buck.
Jurassic Express.
Lucha Express, Jurassic Express. Here, let me change that. Yeah, there we go. I've changed that now. That's perfect. All right. The little dwarf, I noticed, is on a crutch and in a walking boot at ringside. When did he get hurt? When will he get the picture, more importantly?
I was told that he hurt his ankle in a match with Jake Hager. which I didn't see. I guess it was
You
on
think?
Their dark show or whatever.
Probably when somebody fucking speared him like a lawn dart at something, or fucking... He's the one, remember 2 years ago, the way he came to public consciousness was by breaking his fucking leg by doing a Canadian destroyer off a goddamn bar in a bar. Broke his leg clean in half. This kid's going to be a cripple by the time he's fucking 30, and I can't wait, because then we won't have to watch him wrestle anymore, because he apparently ain't going to get the fucking picture. You can't be a little goddamn mutant of 116 pounds, a fishy white, pale, disgusting piece of humanity, and be thrown around by these giant men without killing yourself, you idiot, and you make the business look bad at the same time. Did you see at the start, Dino Douche and the Bucks played duck and dodge and slap and tickle for this extended sequence? At one point in the tumbling routine, Dino Douche actually put his hand out to one of the Bucks' back to like move up a foot so that when you vault your brother, I can catch him right in the middle of God and everybody. Did you see that?
Yeah.
What was it? They were just, it was endless contrived nonsense. Of course, by the way, have we mentioned both babyface teams, although the Bucks are trying to be heels. They're so super serial. Because their feelings have been hurt, and the announcers were trying to talk about the aggression, quote, the aggression and how they're snapping of the Bucks. The announcers are trying to make these children somehow intimidating or like they've lost control of themselves. Like, what would happen if they did lose control? What would happen if little Johnny did lose control and decided he wanted an extra strawberry parfait out of the refrigerator? I'll tell you what would happen. He's 5 years old, so I'd spank him and sit him in a corner. You can't make these fucking little pricks intimidating. Although Road Warrior Buck and Old Jungle Boy had to take endless bumps on the concrete for no reason, just to do it, and Jungle Boy could be a star, but every time he gets in the ring with the Bucks or Olivier or these idiots that can't work, he learns more bad habits that he will never be able to break. They are poisoning that fucking well right there. I mean, he's already taken the fucking lucha hand palm shoot offs into the ropes and just all the sloppy bullshit. But this match, it was not only disjointed and had no flow and made no sense, because that's usual, but it was dreary also. It was just dreary. The Bucks trying to be, like I said, the super serial quasi heels, but they're not really. And it would never end. Then Dino Douche came in like a cow on ice again. Remember how I loved the look and the gimmick and just him standing there when we first saw him? Every single time I see him, now that he has no understanding of how to work like a big man. And it's not just flat-footed, you idiot, you simpleton. It's not just being flat-footed and working like King Kong Bundy. It's picking your spots and making your shit memorable. He can do all kinds of stuff, but he does it constantly. And some of it's awkward and most of it's out of place. And with a concentration on just backflipping off everything, even when he has to turn his back on his opponent for no reason. He's not smart enough to realize when you're that physically gifted, but you also have that size, that you learn to work a style where you do your big man stuff at the start. And if they need to get you down, then they heel you down and you somehow sell. And when you make your comeback, then you pull out all the fucking, well, not even all the flips. You pull out a flip or a couple flips. Build to the finish. He's just awkward and sloppy, and he looks like a fucking moose having a baby every time he gets in the ring. And at one point, old Road Warrior Buck was going toe-to-toe with him, even though he's a foot and a half bigger and 100 pounds heavier. And Dino Douche was bent over, and old Road Warrior Buck was just slapping his back over and over like a pissed-off schoolgirl. And then they just kept tagging in and out, back and forth. There was no sets of heat. There were no real comebacks. There were just different people on offense doing shit. Road Warrior Buck super kicked the dwarf. Please, somebody just get rid of him. I will start a fucking fund to send him to school to teach him something else to do. Then Dino Douche and Jungle Boy just jumped into some fucking Bob Fosse choreography. And Dino Douche dove right out into the crowd, landed on some fucking women, people. I don't know what the fuck. He was wiped out. And the Bucks hit 17 finishes on Jungle Boy. And by the time they were finished, here's the thing. Once, remember we said intent versus stupidity one time before with the Young Bucks when they slipped. Goddamn, what team did they slip over? And they did it in such a way that it looked like a complete fluke. Was it Dino Douche and Jungle Boy?
Was it Private Party?
It was Private Party. They put Private Party over in such a way that it was a complete fluke and couldn't ever happen again, rather than really putting them over. But then they could say, well, we put them over. And some people bought it. And I wondered, was it they're just that ignorant, or they did that on purpose? And I had people say they did it on purpose. Well, in this case, they hit Jungle Boy with their knee and their thing and their boom and their boom, and they beat him so flat it buried him deeper than Jimmy Hoffa. And I'm sure they told him, well, we're going to hit you with 4 finishes. That'll show how strong you are. No, if Dino Douche had or Dino Douche, I'm sorry, I know you get on me about that, had just splattered everybody out on the fucking floor and they'd have goddamn hit one double team on Jungle Boy, it would have given him a little bit of an out because his fucking partner overshot the thing and crashed out there, and holy shit, what the fuck, he's 1 against 2, boom, finish, done. But you keep him in the ring and hit him with something and hit him with something else and hit him with something else. I will hit him with another thing. Now we'll pin him. Hey, you just beat him fucking flat. I refuse to believe it's complete ignorance. I think they're doing it on purpose. Wrestling by kids for kids was my tagline I came up with for this match. What'd you think?
I actually thought it was okay.
What?
Listen, hear me out. If you could accept that the Young Bucks are going to have contrived, choreographed matches, and you can realize that's what it is, I was able to enjoy it a little bit for a couple of reasons. One, it followed one of the worst things I've ever seen on a wrestling show. And this is going to be a theme. This is going to be a theme throughout the pay-per-view, actually. What happens before the match affects how you perceive the next match. Also, I actually, and you and I disagree on this, I like the Bucks playing heel. They're natural heels. I don't even know why they're baby faces. They're so unlikable.
That's what they do, is play heel, though.
I know, but I believe it. I believe they really are those douchebags they were portraying during that match. I think the Bucks should be straight up heels. I know AEW doesn't want heels or baby faces. Everyone's supposed to be like in the Brandy Road zone where week by week you're whatever you feel like being that week. But I think the Bucks as heels are a lot more credible than the Bucks as baby faces. I hate the way they book Jungle Boy. And he's another one of those guys, what you just said about Private Party. We heard that Jungle Boy when he was doing the stuff with Jericho, like at the beginning of the year, I think. You know, oh, they're going to elevate Jungle Boy. He's one of the guys they see as the future. One day it'll be him and MJF.
And now Jericho's swimming in a vat of orange juice with a fucking kid from the Outlaws that used to dress up in pajamas and play wrestler, and still plays wrestler. And Jungle Boy's getting beat by the executive vice presidents.
The last few months have been a waste of Jungle Boy. The more you see, at least I'm going to speak for myself, not for everyone else. The more I see of Luchasaurus, the less I need to see Luchasaurus anymore. I thought the Bucks were good, though, here. Again, taking out, you have to, there's a curve. You have to accept there will be contrived wrestling action taking place. But with that said, them being heels as opposed to them being babyface, I thought was pretty good. And several matches later, when someone said, what do you think of the show? I actually said at that point, this was the best thing on the show. That's not saying it's the best thing ever.
Well, it is. But as I told fucking Flair that morning after the Clash. What Clash was it? I can't even remember now. It was one in the dark days of 1990. Flair and Luger was the main event. He said, "What'd you think?" I said, "You stole the show, Rick, but it was petty theft." But anyway, if this was the best thing on the show, we see where the rest of the show is
up to
going.
a certain point. And again, I will say, and I think we have to talk more about the commentators later on as well as the crowd, but at least at this point in the show, whatever crowd was there was still making noise.
Well,
and that helped.
I noticed.
Obviously.
I noticed later on, and I thought it was kind of this way through the show. I didn't notice a drop, but I said, wait a minute. They have fans back and they have less crowd noise. Was that a thing that more than me noticed?
Yeah, well, apparently there's a few things at play here. One, AEW does a really bad job of miking their crowds. They did that during the period of time where they had fans there. Remember, I used to always say, well, the crowd was dead, and then I'd hear from people that were there like, oh, no, the fans are actually reacting to the stuff. I'm like, oh,
well, I went through that with Ring of Honor. For whatever reason, audio's the hardest part.
But from what I've been told, when the show began, it was, well, with the heat index, 100 degrees.
Oh, Jesus.
And humid. And it got a little better as the show went on, but people were beat down. They were out.
But wait a minute, they went 4 hours?
No, that's their stupidity. I can't justify.
Well, that's nothing. No, wait a minute. With the pre-show is 5 hours. So you mean to tell me, because this weekend was the best weather we've had here in months. You mean to tell me it was still 100 degrees and humid in Florida? Well, I guess it would have been.
Yeah.
And they did an hour pre-show and a 4-hour fucking pay-per-view that seemed like it was 16 days. No wonder the people were, yeah.
I think between the heat and the Matt Hardy incident, there were things that took the crowd that was there out of it.
Yeah.
And add on top of that, they don't know how to mic their crowd. Other than when they're singing Jericho's song. Somehow then everyone is loud and clear. But any other point in the show, you can't. Well, there were various points you can't hear the crowd at all.
Well, speaking of not hearing the crowd, in the Casino Battle Royal, Jesus Christ, why will they not stop? There's never been a good one. And it's the rules are ridiculous and overcomplicated. And when I know his name is Justin Roberts, but I'm looking at my notes. I wrote Jason Robards read the ridiculous, goofy rules.
How dare you, sir?
Jason Robards.
How dare you? One of the great actors of all time.
Then nobody. What the fuck? So anyway, the first guys are Trent, Daniels, Hager, Blade, and Felix. And I swear to God, I'm getting a horrible gas pain bubbling up just reliving this. And it was 5 guys doing shit to each other that I don't know that they think anybody wants to see a battle royal on television, much less pay-per-view these days, especially with these rules, is puzzling to me. It's not a Royal Rumble where at least you don't have the ring all cluttered up. It's just mismatched guys in a battle royal punching and kicking, and the goofy ones take bumps that are green and don't know any better, which is a good way to break your fucking leg or whatever. The only thing in the first segment of time, I thought Chris Daniels must owe Jake Hager trans because he was just fucking throwing him and beating him everywhere. And then they don't even, at least they could have cleared out the ring before. Here comes 5 more fucking people. And I didn't even keep track of the eliminations mostly because why? Who gives a shit? But Will Hobbs, Fuck Taylor, Santana, and Ortiz, and they lucked into the draw, the partners, together, and Kazarian, and it was more the same thing. And it just gets more crowded. And then here comes Billy Gunn with the next draw of the card in the next time period. What is Pentagon's name now?
He lost the rights to Pentagon Jr., or the rights are not going to be used by AEW. It is now Penta something Cero M. I forget what it is. It's Penta.
What
something.
It sounds like a fucking Russian bot Twitter handle.
I don't know what the M is. That's the part I don't get at all.
Penta came out. Ricky Starks and Brian Cage come out together. So both those tag partners drew the cards, and Darby Allin. And Darby comes in with his skateboard, and at least he picked the energy level up a little bit in this meat chopping fest. But he does his skateboard shots, and then, okay, that's over with. Then the butt buddies, Fuck Taylor and Trent, hugged in the middle of the Battle Royal, and so they could do their camera zoom, and the pace suddenly went glacial in this whole thing. And then Sean Spears comes out on the next group and went to the announce desk and put the headset on and started talking. And he doesn't have to go to the ring. He came out first and he could just wander over there and talk for a while. There's nobody making him try to get in the ring.
Someone and then conveniently left that headset just at the edge of the table.
Well, yes.
In case someone came over. Yeah.
That was the A2. And then here comes Eddie Kingston and Butcher and Sonny Kiss and Lance Archer. And they have an opportunity here with Lance Archer. And even the announcers were trying to say, boy, at one point or another, wow, Murder Hawk Lance Archer is looking dominant. Kiss came in with some really embarrassing punches. Go back and watch this, kids, and tell me I'm being too hard on Sonny Kiss when I say that he does not need to be a professional wrestler. And then Sonny Kiss eliminated Jake Hager. Did you see that? If I would love to have seen who told Jake Hager that, and I would have loved to have seen how they talked him into it, or if he immediately just said yes because he's an idiot. They keep trying to build these monsters, and then they are unmolested with no extra help, just eliminated by job guys. And they couldn't even figure out a way that if Hager was going out, it could be Archer. They couldn't have Archer and Hager get some of the crap out of this ring like Sonny Kiss and goddamn fucking whoever the fuck else, the best friends, and then meet the two big guys and make a point out of something. I remember when Diesel made the fucking impact in the Royal Rumble. Remember when every fucking giant that they tried to push in a Royal Rumble or in a Battle Royal, it's an easy spot to do. Let him fucking toss out some of the underneath talent, especially if they're coming in stages. I'd have put the first 10 guys in there for the first 6 or 7 minutes or whatever it was, just so Lance Archer or Jake Hager, either one could have come out and eliminated them all. Then at least you've got somebody over, and then you send some more in there to fuck the thing up. Speaking of which, the Joker card proved prophetic for poor Matt Sydal. In a metaphor for this whole entire match, poor Matt Sydal, the last entrant, and he's a good kid. Last entrant comes out, goes up to the top rope to do... Here's the thing. The guy that was laying in the fucking ring was knocked down by someone else. Why would anybody, Matt Sydal or anybody else, come out, climb up to the top rope and expect the guy to be out for however long when he wasn't even out when the guy was just laying there? He doesn't know how he got there. He wasn't out yet. He just climbs to the top and he's going to do a twisting, flipping splash onto this fucking guy that just happens to be laying there.
A shooting star press.
Whatever the fuck it was, why would you? It didn't work out. His right foot slipped off the top rope and he went up and half a turn and landed on his fucking head practically. And missed the guy. The only part of Sydal that hit the guy he was landing on was his foot. And the guy sold that because he was, oh shit. And then the guy immediately rolls over next to him and hugs him like he's his wounded war veteran buddy. And he's seeing if he's still alive. On camera. Then I wrote, why are there still so many guys in the ring in this clusterfuck? And then the fireworks went off from somewhere down the street. Somewhere down the street, a huge fireworks display went off that you could see because they're in an outdoor, and you could hear because they're in an outdoor arena. And the people popped for that. And then, here we go. Brian Cage got a body bag and dumped hundreds and hundreds of thumbtacks into the body bag, put Darby Allin in the body bag, zipped it up, picked him up, and threw in a black body bag, and threw him over the top rope onto the hard stage in the bag filled with thumbtacks. Is that what I saw? Is that what you saw? That's what I saw.
That was so irresponsible, yes.
So at that point, I determined two things. Number one, I've been on the fence about Darby Allin because I think he's a great gimmick and he's got the underdog appeal and et cetera, but holy fuck, the more I see and hear of him as a human being, the more I would think he's just a complete idiot. I've got my answer here. Fuck you, Darby Allin. You're a complete fucking idiot. You're just a fucking goof. And if somebody had asked me to do that to them, I would have looked at them like they had turds hanging out of their mouth and told them to get off the goddamn drugs. And if there was any professional in charge of this show, they would have told this kid the same thing. But as we will find out later on, no professionals are in charge of the making of this goddamn sketch comedy program. So once the bag spot happened, I fast forward to the finish because why the fuck watch any more of this after that? And Archer won by tossing Kingston out, but the finish was fucked up because Jake jumped his cue to scare Kingston with the snake bag that there's no snake in, which is why you never see the snake.
Well, by the way, how bad was that? The announcers said that Eddie Kingston is afraid of snakes.
Have we been told this before?
No, not that I'm aware of. And again, we don't watch their bullshit B show on YouTube. And then Jake just holds the bag in the direction of Eddie Kingston, who really didn't sell it like he was all that scared to begin with.
But did you go back and watch it again? The first time Jake shows him the bag, he jumped the cue because they were going to do something else, and Kingston takes his foot and kicks Jake away like, not now, motherfucker. And then whoever's on the apron where they were doing the other fucking thing that they were going to do, then they got that finished, and then Jake holds the bag up, and Kingston looks down in the open bag and sees the imaginary snake and is distracted, and then fucking Archer, god-awful, just fucking god-awful. This whole thing. Anyway.
And it telegraphed the finish of the main event. You knew it wasn't going to be MJF against Lance Archer.
Oh my God, wait a minute. And the winner got a title shot. Of course. Well, shit, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. I was so fucking just glad for this thing to be over. I forgot what the guy won. Well, it's always nice to know, that who's going to win the fucking main event, which may be the only match people give a shit about. We're not there yet. Did I miss anything in this?
No, it was awful. It was garbage. It certainly points out the issues with the roster. This reminded me of it's like the Royal Rumble in maybe 98, where you had some top guys in there like Steve Austin, and I think Steve Austin won that year. You had like Steve Austin, and you had like Ken Shamrock and Cactus Jack. But then you had, I guess I should say Mankind. But then you had, actually that's the year Mankind was in there 3 times with 3 different characters. And that's kind of the point. You had all these guys that no one cared about. The DOA, various wrestlers.
Well, but, I got to be honest with you, comparing any of those guys to a lot of these guys, though, is insulting to those guys. I mean, for fuck's sake, this reminded me more of the Dennis Coralluzzo, who sold a bunch of tickets, so we'll put them in a battle royal match.
That's not a bad comparison. I mean, it's always been the freak show battle royal when they do this, and that's what it was. There were only a handful of people you could actually see winning this thing. It was bad. The Matt Sydal clip will live on in infamy. That is, I feel bad for the guy. That's the most embarrassing debut. Too. That's the most embarrassing debut I've ever seen. The first thing he does is that shooting star press. And going into our earlier comments, after this, I said, you know what? That Bucks match was all right. I didn't mind that. What?
Wait a minute. I know one debut that was even worse because Sydal got back up. Remember I told you Glenn Coca, that football player, the Canadian Football League, that they had signed to early developmental in like 98. Tom Pritchard had a hand in training him up in the at the studio in Stamford before we got the developmental territory set up, and he ends up, they book him on a show in Canada in either where he played or maybe near his hometown. He's a local hero or whatever. His place is packed, a couple thousand people in his gym. He's so fired up. He gets in the ring, he jumps up on the turnbuckles and throws his arms up in the air, and the people cheer like crazy, and he jumps off and he lands in the ring and he breaks his fucking leg. Goes down right there. Boom. That's it. They carted him out.
How would you compare this debut to the debut of the Shockmaster on WCW's Flair for the Gold?
Well, this actually was even more spectacular, but nobody got a bone broken. So I could fucking.
And another match where the announcers aren't taking anything seriously.
How can you?
Because it's their job. No matter what they're seeing, they need to be. Terry Funk said it. The announcer is the most important part of a wrestling broadcast. You have one guy who's taking it well, I shouldn't even say that. Excalibur takes it seriously to a nerd degree. Shivani's just sitting there having a good time. Jim Ross has checked the fuck out. He does not give a shit what he says. And I just watched the first episode of Mid-South Wrestling that he did in 1983. He debuted on Mid-South TV in 82, and then he was off TV for like a year. And they brought him back finally at the end of the summer of 1983. And there's a guy trying really hard, trying to be serious. Obviously, he had Bill Watts. He couldn't fuck up. He's a completely different guy now. If I was in charge, and if I was in charge, there'd be a lot of things done differently.
You think?
I would completely change up the broadcast team. It is not working. They shit on the show every single time out. And this time, they either were shitting on the show, or eventually they just got completely quiet like it was a golf game. Or a golf match. I don't even know what you would call it.
Golf game, golf match, golf fight.
Golf tournament.
You know what? You can call it shitting on the show, or you can call it smelling shit and recognizing it. They got to have something to talk about. Let's talk about the next one. Because the last man standing match, where the last man standing pretty much couldn't stand up. I thought this was supposed to be a match. I didn't know they were going to do the fucking football field and concourse thing for this also. Did I miss that, or did they just decide to do this? Was it advertised as a match and then they just decided to do the location fight?
I only saw it as a match, and before you even go any further, let me ask you, because I was trying to think of it and I couldn't come up with the answer. We just uploaded to the YouTube channel the video of your review for the tables match they had a couple weeks ago on Dynamite. I know they've been feuding. I know there was the incident where Hardy got busted open with the chair. He was trying to be friends with Sammy early on. Maybe they haven't. I don't remember. Have they had just a straight up one-on-one match without stipulations or anything?
I don't think so. Maybe they'll have that next week. It's a perfect blow-off match. No stipulations, just two guys wrestling. So they step. Matt's out near the football field. They're in the concourse of the empty arena. Sammy Guevara shows up in a golf cart, and I wrote more of this shit. And I don't even know how to comment on these matches, because they're not matches. So within a couple minutes, they're fighting around over the tables and the garbage cans and the whatever the fuck, and they get on top of a forklift. Was one of them, while they're fighting up there, was one of them operating it because the forklift starts going up?
I guess. I don't know.
So now they're both forklift experts. Would you know, if you got on a forklift, how to fucking raise a forklift up? Much less if you were in a fight at the time?
I've never been on a forklift, so I couldn't.
All right.
I have no idea.
So, because there's a table conveniently below there where there's all the masks that they're selling, all the fans that ain't coming in the building without masks. And they try to say, well, for the fans who come in without masks, well, there's 500 masks laid out. There's only 500 fucking fans allowed in the building, blah, blah, blah. They got a table there so that they can raise the forklift up and tease taking a bump off of it, because everybody wants to see that. And then Sammy Guevara will spear Matt Hardy off the forklift and through the table, which he did. And they missed the fucking table. Well, they broke it with their lower bodies. The back of Matt Hardy's head hit from better than 10 feet up in the air on the concrete floor with Guevara on top of him. And he's motionless. And he's knocked the fuck out. And Ref Aubrey goes up and puts up the X. And then she starts a 10 count. And Matt, of course, because he's a wrestler, when he comes to some of his senses, is trying to get up and is staggering, and she puts up another X. And Matt's going to try to keep going because, as we've talked about with concussions before, we had Bobby Fulton on the show when he has finished several matches with concussions and then not remembered finishing the match or who his brother was. So just because a guy gets up and says, okay, I'm going to keep going, doesn't mean he should. Here comes Doc Samson out, and they stop the match. And then Matt gets up and starts wandering around looking for Sammy Guevara, but they've already stopped it and announced it. Well, that's the way it is sometimes, folks, but it's better he can't continue. They went to the announcers saying this, and then after 3 or 4 minutes, they start the fight again. They've decided, Matt has probably told the doctor, I'm fine, I can do this. But they said he passed concussion protocol. And they start the fight again so that they can go immediately to a lighting tower that they climb up, and Matt's so shaky, Sammy has to help him. And then, so Sammy can get knocked off through a pre-planned crash area. He just takes a goddamn stuntman backwards bump, whoa, into a pre-planned crash area that couldn't hurt him at all. But yet they were earlier going to take a bump off. And the thing is, think about this. If they had done the spear off the top of the forklift through the table right, it wasn't the finish. I am so confused and disgusted. Yes, I know Matt would want to go out. They shouldn't have been up there to begin with. They ought to be in the goddamn ring where they're supposed to be. It's fucking ridiculous. Spears off the tops of forklifts. Now they got Matt Hardy doing shit that marks do, that idiots do, that amateur hour goofs do, that indie garbage deathmatch guys do, that stupid fucking bookers do with more goddamn ideas and money than they've got brains or sense. That nobody apparently that has any experience in this business will tell people not to fucking do, because you're a fucking idiot if you want to do that. And here's why. Because they all want to be cool and keep their job. Like anybody would want to work in this goddamn fiasco. So who knows whether Matt has brain damage, because the jury's still out on that, because several times in the rest of the program, they made mention, the announcers did, because they were told to, that, well, they only restarted that match because of the concussion protocol that Doc Samson gave Matt Hardy, because they were already catching shit on fucking Twitter. And then they sent Matt Hardy to the hospital, where apparently the AEW word was, no, he's fine, no concussion. And the word from his wife was, it 1,000% was a concussion, and anybody with a fucking set of eyes can see that. So the jury's still out on whether they gave poor Matt Hardy brain damage to have another garbage match on a stupid Marks pay-per-view. What'd you think?
This was the moment that I really got taken out of the show. Like I said earlier, what you see affects what you see next. This changed the way I saw the rest of the show. I feel really bad for Matt Hardy, although I'm sure a lot of this was something he wanted to do. It was his ideas. But it was clear that he was fucked up. I mean, it was...
He couldn't even stand up.
He couldn't stand up. You saw him on the ground. He looked messed up.
And when he did stand up, then his rubber-legged and he fell back down. And that wasn't working or selling.
Beyond just the X, just watching the body language on Aubrey, you could tell she knew something was wrong. And they finally ended it, and I was happy. I was like, oh, you know what? Good. You know, this guy does not need to be doing anything right now. And then they sent him back out to do the finish, which just seems like the most irresponsible decision you could make. And I think AEW looks like shit here. Because even people who love AEW were pointing out how this is bullshit here. The guy was clearly messed up. If he passed the concussion protocol, there's something wrong with your doctor and his protocol.
Well, for fuck's sake, the only instant protocol, here, let me look in your fucking eyes. Is your pupils dilated? Yes, no, maybe, well, we don't know.
Are you concussed? No. Okay, get back out there. That was ridiculous. AEW got a lot of shit, and they deserve it. After the Darby spot, which was incredibly reckless, then this happens in front of everybody, and then Matt's wife goes on Twitter. Obviously, she's concerned. She's watching it at home. This was really bad.
Well, and that Darby Allin spot was completely different and even stupider because he wanted to do that. See these fucking Mark skateboard dive off high building stupid fucks. They think that's cool, and if they're tractioned or paralyzed or whatever, it's like, oh, well, yeah, because life sucks anyway, but we did it for art or whatever the fuck. But with this here, you've got one of your only fucking name professionals. And instead of putting him in the ring where he can teach some of these guys something, and Sammy's got a lot of potential if he don't kill himself, you're having them have the same kind of garbage match that all the rest of these jackoffs you've been conned into signing can have. Why sign fucking real pros and don't let them get in the ring? So it's stupid on every account. And then, well, okay, by the way, I did this for you. The AEW women's title match was up next. Thunder Rosa versus Hikaru Shida. And I knew that you would just blister me to no end if I didn't watch this. And I like Thunder Rosa. She had a great match with Serena. So, okay, I'm going to watch this. And you're just telling me you zoned out of the show. So did you watch this match?
I watched the match,
but
between what just happened and the fact that now the fans were completely silent, or at least what was coming across on the TV broadcast was an empty room. Not even the sound of the wrestlers at ringside. There was no sound. The announcers completely sucked at this point, too. I heard from a lot of people who said they loved it. A lot of people who said it was the best women's match in AEW history.
Okay, all right. Well, you heard from the wrong people.
I couldn't get into the match because of the state of this show. That Battle Royal I hated, and then it was followed by me seeing a guy almost die on their stupid show for a spot that meant nothing in a match that meant nothing.
After the worst thing that has ever been done by any wrestling promotion ever and aired on television showed as the first segment. Then all those things happened. And then, so you've zoned out on this match so that my point could not be proven to you.
I didn't zone out. I watched it. I couldn't get into it.
All right. Well, I'll tell you why. Because Thunder Rosa just had a great match with Serena Deeb where both can wrestle and both can work. And here, Thunder Rosa, who can wrestle and can work, was trying to do Hikaru Shida's indie girl stuff. When it was Thunder Rosa on offense, shit looked okay most of the time, although Shida really can't sell and has crummy fundamentals. But they were trying, because Thunder Rosa's the visitor and Shida's allegedly the star, they're trying to do more of her match, and it fucking blew. At one point, they went to the floor. I put the watch on this. 1 minute and 40 seconds straight on the floor doing Shida's continued contrived chair leaping spots while poor Paul Turner, the referee, who I know from Ring of Honor, just stood there and got buried. That's why I wrote, can we have Serena back, please? Maybe when school starts back in Japan, we can trade Shida for Serena. Excrement at one point actually said Hikaru Shida was the Tokyo Joshi International Princess Champion.
I put on Twitter when I heard that. I said, I guarantee Jim's going to write this in his notes. The Tokyo Joshi Princess Champion. That is the most ridiculous wrestling title name I've ever heard.
And like anybody would give two flying French fried titty fucks, you masked, sock-faced goof. All right. At one point, Shida tried to get a leg hold forever, and both of them just fell over. This is what even a good worker can look like if they're in there with an indie-level worker and they have a style clash. And somebody should have helped them put this together, but who? I wondered. Who? You know, the best way to have put this together would have been to fucking book Thunder Rosa with somebody else, in my opinion. But that... Thunder Rosa gave Shida a DVD on the apron, cover, 1-2, kick out. Okay, fast forward. Sheeta won with a running knee, rotten and long. From wherever the Death Valley driver was on the apron to the finish, I fast forwarded it. It looked very, very long, and it was rotten. Even when you got to have talent on both sides of the ring, my boy. Final thoughts?
I thought they were in an unfortunate position following the Matt Hardy debacle.
You just can't accept that Sheeta is shitty. Shitty Sheeta.
I don't think she's as great as a lot of the AEW stans, as you put it earlier, think she is, but I don't think she's completely awful. I think Thunder Rosa, I never watched her in the NWA because I didn't watch that crap, but I think Thunder Rosa was really impressive when I saw her against Serena Deeb. I just saw a guy get concussed on TV.
All right.
And then sent back out there. They could have put Flair versus Steamboat out there, and I wouldn't have given a shit at that point.
Well, we can't grieve forever, so let's move on. All right, next up was the obligatory, I did it again. 8-man, the Dork Order versus the Nightmare Family. So I know there's 18 of the Dork Order, but they come out ready for their 8-man, and here comes Scorpio Sky, Matt Cardona, Dustin Rhodes, and QT Marshall, and they have to have Bunny and Brandy with them. They just have to. This is such a dangerous thing with these homicidal maniacs in the Dork Order. We have to bring 220-pound girls to the ring with us.
The girls aren't 220 pounds.
220-pound girls.
Okay. That makes sense.
That would be 220-pound girls. 220-pound girls. Anyway, and they jump-started it. And sloppy brawling. And here's the thing. If it's a main event grudge match and the babyfaces feel they have been wronged, they come in and jumpstart it and start it hot, that's great. Or if the fucking heels in a main event grudge match want to stop the babyfaces from having too much momentum and they jumpstart it once in a while, that's fate adds. But when everything is a jumpstart and it's honestly with this outlaw-looking fucking band of dorks in the Dork Order, you've just got another fucking match that starts at 100 miles an hour and nobody gives a shit. And go back, kids. You should save these on your DVRs. Go back and watch it. And Dustin Rhodes is still the smoothest and best worker in the company, but that's, as we've said, faint praise. But now, every time he touches Brody Lee, every time somebody touches boring Brody, they lose their fucking talent. Go back and watch when Dustin and Brody hook up and do-si-do around at the start, they're pretending to hit each other, but not really doing it. Sloppy punches and it's like Dustin was trying to tell him something and he wasn't listening. I don't fucking know, but they're just swinging their arms at each other's sides. Anytime somebody touches Brody Lee, their talent leaves their body. They settled it down and the faces beat up Pizzeria Uno for a while. By the way, somebody sent me a picture, a link actually of a still frame from a video. Pizzeria Uno, he was a member of the Super Smash Brothers, and I've said this guy is like the epitome of a fucking bland white kid, right? Just fucking looks like the mokes that would be working at the concession stand. He had a previous gimmick when he was up there in Canada with the outlaw fucking let's play this shit in our backyard crew that he started with. Guess what his previous gimmick was? His name was Flip D. Burger. Berger. Had a chyron there so I would know. And just fucking scraggly brown hair, unshaven fucking, at the time, because this was probably 15 years ago, young fucking goof-looking guy, and now he's a fat goof-looking guy. Although he's not as fat as he was, because he can't afford as much pizza, apparently, now. This heel group is not only so rotten at wrestling, but looks so outlaw that Colt Cabana looks like a superstar in the middle of these people. He actually is physically fucking well. Looks like he can move around without falling down. They tried to get some heat on QT, but they didn't really know how, and it was the pace of a snail with too many people in this fucking match. I did make note that Cardona's a good-looking athlete, and he made a nice little comeback, but then they stopped him, and the match came to a screeching halt, and they got heat on Cardona. By that time, I was right, please make this stop. I asked myself a question, how could this match be better? I answered it, don't book it. Then Dustin gets a tag, and he makes the comeback of the night. But then Brody Lee comes in, and did you see that? Stopped him with a kick that wouldn't have broken an egg to the head, and Dustin just fucking falls right over, because that's the spot. And Scorpio Sky tags himself in, and everything comes to a halt again. Every time they get the heat on somebody, they tag a babyface, he makes a comeback, then the whole match comes to a fucking halt, and they start over again. And then this time, the referee turned his back on purpose, obviously, visually on purpose, so that Anna Jay could come in and spin Scorpio Sky around and go to slap him or something, while the referee's standing there admonishing Brody Lee not to stand there and do nothing, because that's what he was doing. Which, of course, was the reason for Brandy to roll in and spear Anna Jay. They shoehorned this spot in with the girls just so Brandy could get something to do when she didn't have anything to do and didn't need anything to do. Because she didn't deserve anything to do, because she shouldn't have been involved in this to begin with. And then, after that, Scorpio Sky gets to make a comeback. Now that Brandy's got her fucking spot out of the way, Scorpio Sky makes a comeback, and then they stop Sky. And suddenly, he just cold tags Cardona. And then suddenly QT tagged himself in when Cardona didn't know about it. So fucking... Cardona did a dive, and then QT did a dive. Because everybody's got to do a dive, one right after another. But then the Dork Order did one of their male cheerleading routines into a shoulder ride, into a finish on QT, and then Colt splashed him off the top, great looking splash, and got a 2 count. And I, at that point, wrote, who cooked this bowl of scrambled eggs? Then Brody Lee made QT tag Dustin back in, and they did more play punches with each other, because everybody was dying to see that confrontation again. And then Brody Lee planted Dustin, but Colt missed the moonsault that he told him to hit Dustin with, and Dustin pinned Colt. So this hot grudge match, because they just hospitalized and carried Cody out on a stretcher, fuck Cody, we'll just get even for him ourselves. So they fucking, the first match they have, after they hospitalize fucking Cody and he's carried out on a stretcher, the Nightmare family without Cody gets the revenge on the heels that did it. And then, because Colt lost, Brody yelled at Colt in a mean fashion for losing. And the announcer said, we've never seen Colt treated like this before. Oh, heavens. Oh, what? I'm clutching my pearls now that he spoke meanly to Colt Cabana. Did they just get even for Cody's assault and battery? Does Cody need to come back now, or can he just hang out at home or wherever he is?
I don't know if anyone's missing Cody right now, but they didn't just attack Cody and knock him off the stretcher and beat him up. They beat up Dustin. They beat up QT. Anna Jay choked out Brandy. Now Brandy's beat up Anna Jay.
Yeah.
Dustin gets the shot against Brody Lee this Wednesday on TV after scoring the pinfall here.
Yeah.
This just seems like backwards booking in terms of why anyone should care about any of this. I will say, I got a kick out of the fact that the Dork Order all comes out, the biggest crew of people since the NWO. There's just so many of them. I don't even know who half of them are. They're all so serious and dour. And Colt Cabana is with him, and he's just still being Colt Cabana, and he's all happy. And I really like that. I thought Colt Cabana was good here. And
that's where we've come. That's how far we've come. Colt Cabana was good here.
I didn't care about the babyface team at all. Obviously, I'm still taken out of the show because since Matt Hardy almost died, we got the women's match. The crowd has started to get to the point where they're either overheated or under-mic'd or not giving a shit. And then we got this match. I did not care about this match at all. And I wasn't the only one.
Well, let's talk about the next match and see if you cared about that. What?
I'm just trying to think, when was the promo with Kip Sabian?
I zipped through that.
Okay.
Why? What did he say?
Kip Sabian announced that, or I guess Penelope announced, they're getting married, and I think they're going to have their wedding on Dynamite.
Oh, good Lord.
And this Wednesday, in order to entice you to watch Dynamite, Kip Sabian is going to announce who will be his best man. And then he held up a sign to follow him on Twitch, and the little shot at the WWE, they said AEW approves of this at the bottom of the screen. Although I don't know if I'd be taking shots at WWE on this pay-per-view event.
Yeah, I wouldn't be taking any shots anywhere at anybody if I was a part of this fucking fiasco, start to finish. I wanted to bring up the next match because I want you to go first and tell me maybe what I missed. Help me out a little bit. Our boys, the team was in need for the AEW tag title, FTR versus Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Olivier. What did you see here?
At this point, it appeared the crowd was completely burned out, quite literally, from the heat. I thought the commentators did an atrocious job during this match. I thought the match went on way too long, considering the factors that we talked about earlier.
That it was rotten?
Well, but beyond that, if it was the same match and it was in front of a building filled with people who were hot for AEW, it would have been a completely different story. They were in front of a hot crowd in an open-air building. It went on way too long for that.
It would have been the same.
It didn't come together for me. And I love FTR, and I had high hopes, as I said on the show, about this match. But the match itself didn't come together for me. And I think a lot of those outside circumstances played into it. I wouldn't have done a match at this length at this point in the show with these situations.
Well, but the world's greatest living wrestling artist has to have time to fuck the whole thing up. All of his matches have to go for fucking ever. Don't you know that?
I am seeing a trend.
Adam Page has lost his smile. They even had a fucking sign. The Hangman lost his smile. But he turned his back. This is the story the announcers are telling. He turned his back on the Bucks to be friends with FTR, but they spurned him. And before the match had even started yet, I'm like, Jesus Christ, it sounds like fucking middle school. They're not adults. When they started the match, they were spending more time working the stupid issue between Page and Olivier, like anybody gives a fuck. At this point, they've milked and bungled and made this seem so fucking insignificant, and the Bucks whining about, all we wanted was a friend, and all it blah, blah, blah. These aren't grown men acting this way. So it's fucking, they spend more time on the stupid shit with Page and Olivier, who have no teamwork whatsoever. They do team moves, but they do not work as a team. There's a difference. They stopped Page with a heat spot, which started things rolling well when he missed the goddamn ring post. Did you see that? They were going to shovel him in to the post. Instead of taking it through the second and third buckle with the shoulder, he decided to slide, and he was going to do the old Kurt Hennig thing and slide sideways into it, and he fucking got hung. So they baseball slid him for the heat spot. Once FTR took over, they slowed it down to get the heat on Page, and I thought they were starting to build something, and they worked like heels. But it didn't really build. I think it just, especially with Olivier, but Page is trying to do, instead of working like he's from North Carolina or Virginia, the mid-Atlantic area, he's trying to do more of this modern horse shit that the rest of these guys do. because I knew it would be a style clash with Olivier and the FTR, but they didn't gel. And like they got heat on Page, and then he was on the floor. Dax went to roll him in, and he just rolled right off the apron and decked fucking Dax and went right in the ring and just went over and cold tagged Olivier after the heat they got on him. So that nobody trying to stop him. Horrible fucking just. Olivier did the comeback with the jazz hands and I've never seen jazz hands Polish hammers before. It's like he's spinning. He's spinning with these ballet florets and flourishes, and then he twinkles his hands in the air, and then he comes with the Polish hammer that looks more like a goddamn Tinkerbell hammer. And then he made some more funny faces and did a couple of flips. And then this was what I've never wanted to see, and they missed a perfect opportunity to actually do something positive here. FTR's on the floor. Olivier makes his bug eyes, his finger pointing, his gesticulating. He does the twinkle toes butt plug run to the ropes. He does a dive, and FTR stood there and caught him. So now they've officially been indoctrinated. Wouldn't that have been a perfect spot to walk off from him? I'm not saying not tell him about it. I'm saying do a spot where they walked off from him and let him crash. They do it all the time anyway, on purpose. And then, well, okay, we're not cooperating with your fucking phony wrestling, you cosplay wrestling bullshit artist. We're real. That would have said that, but they caught him. And then at one point, FTR hit a series of quick double teams and rolled Olivier up with a jackknife, and it looked like Page missed the save, tried to grab his foot and missed. Olivier had to kick out of that. Here's why you didn't like this match. Here's why it didn't come together. Because FTR were trying to do all the awkward, ridiculous video game bullshit that Kenny Olivier does. And since none of it is actually wrestling or part of wrestling, or you don't learn it in wrestling school because you learn how to wrestle in wrestling school, it looked horrible. The FTR is the most highly trained, professional, smooth workers that they've got in the company. But if you don't know what the fuck this guy's doing with this awkward, self-invented, self-trained video game bullshit, you don't know how to fucking deal with it. And it looks horrible. And to me, Kenny Olivier looks to me as a person who potentially would be in a match with him. He looks like he's hard and awkward as fuck to work with if you're a wrestler. If you're just doing the flips and the gymnastics, then it all blends together and you can't really tell when somebody's making a mistake anyway. But why do the partners keep hiding on the floor? The partner that's not illegal, there'd be two guys in the ring. You don't see the other two on the apron or on the fucking working the apron. You see them hiding, leaning on the apron, waiting for their next spot, looking. Then they tried forever to do a superplex spot, and finally they got it, superplex, boom, and a splash by Cash and a 2 count. More finger pointing and prissy prancing and gesticulating, but he did get foiled trying to do the one-winged fairy. I lost track of who was in control because it just starts going back and forth. They're trying to get heat on Olivier at this point, but he can't sell. He just lays there and makes faces. There was no urgency or jeopardy to the heat on Olivier because they'd gone too long already and they hadn't set this fucking thing up. I know FTR was trying, but they're also obviously trying to fucking cooperate with this fucking imbecile and do his Harpo Marx shit, and that just makes them look unprofessional and not as good as they are. Then Olivier made his own comeback with his little tulip suplexes or snapdragons or whatever they are, and then got thrown headfirst into Adam Page, and that looked pretty good. It looked like they bonked heads. So naturally, after he fucking gets thrown headfirst into Page, and Page flies to the floor and sells it, seconds later, Olivier is fine and makes a cold tag to Page, who's fresh as a daisy and makes a big comeback. And then he did a dive off the top. At least FTR moved out of the way for the moonsault, They moved around the other side of the ring post, so he just cross-bodied him. And I wrote, how long is this shit? FTR hit double diving headbutts off the top, wasn't the finish. FTR did a Steiner Bulldog onto Olivier on the floor, then to Page in the ring, and it was a 2 count. And suddenly, within easily less than 30 seconds, maybe less than 15 seconds, after Olivier got a Bulldog off one of FTR's shoulders by the other one onto the concrete floor, he was back into the ring, okay, interfering. But Page then gave Cash a backflip, sack of shit slam off the top rope. Did a flip with him. The follow with the sack of shit, the fall-away slam, but did a flip with him and off the top rope, landed on top of him in a cover. That's a 2 count. Then Olivier and Page miss their finish twice. The buckshot and the little knee he does from the back. They miss that because the guy ducked it first, and then the second time, Olivier hit Page with the knee, and FTR hit their spike piledriver on Page for a 2 count. What the fuck? And then they hit another exact same spike piledriver on Adam Page and got the 3 count. You can't tell me FTR put that match together. They can't be that stupid. They don't think that dull-witted. That had to be the world's greatest wrestling artist fucking this whole thing up. The absolute worst FTR match that has ever been perpetrated. Because they weren't in control of it and they were being too nice, which is what I predicted that they would do. Did Tully ever interfere in that match?
Not that I'm aware of.
Then why is he standing there? If he's going to be a heel manager, interfere. He couldn't interfere. He was afraid to get too close to these baby faces. They might hurt him when they're trying to fucking kill everybody else with all the stupid shit they do. And then Olivier blew Adam Page off and walked out fine on the bad leg that they'd been working on through the whole match. Too long, too much Olivier, and this was laid out lousily. Is lousily in the American Heritage Dictionary? I won't even bother to look it up. If it's not, I just made it. And then Olivier goes out in the back with the other members of the Women Haters Club, Road Warrior and Balding, and they headed to the treehouse to discuss shit. And on the way out, Olivier laid down an ultimatum to the Bucks. Well, it's going to be him or me or whatever the fuck he laid down an ultimatum because they're all having a lover's quarrel and they just can't get along. And I know pretty soon that Alfalfa is not going to let Spanky in the fucking clubhouse anymore. Jesus Christ. I can't even enjoy Here's how I feel. I feel so bad for FTR. They are in a place where they are the best in the world at what they do, and they have a variety of well-trained opponents that they can have good matches that are totally disregarded by management, and they're treated like job guys. So they come to a place where they will be paid and treated and promoted like top guys and have absolutely nobody in the goddamn company qualified to work against them because they're so far ahead of everybody else that they end up trying to have the other guys' matches and they suck. So they can't fucking win. Do you disagree with what I just said?
I mean,
we like them.
No, I'm a big fan of theirs. This match didn't come together. I think there's lots of different reasons why. You want to blame Kenny Omega? I can go with that. You want to say the fact that the fans sounded like they weren't there? I think that's part of the problem. I think the announcers. I think the booking's part of the problem. I think the announcers did a bad job here. I think there's a lot. I think it went way too long, considering also, I think a lot of people were in the same boat as me after the Matt Hardy thing. And if you were watching on Twitter or following along on Twitter, everyone was talking about the Matt Hardy thing still. It took a lot of people out of this show. And it hurt everything on this show.
Well, I don't know. With
that said, I'm happy they're tag team champions. First guys to be NXT and AEW tag team champions, as well as Raw and SmackDown. I hope they do something good with them. I was surprised that the Bucks didn't interfere to cost Page and Omega the belts. I figured that would happen. And then setting up a rematch with Page and Omega versus the Bucks. Now we'll see what happens. I'm happy. The right guys are the tag team champions right now.
Yes.
And I got faith in them having good matches with other people. And we'll see what Adam Page versus Omega will be.
Oh, God, I forgot. We're going to have to look at that. I don't know why everybody was so upset about Matt. Why the AEW fans were so upset about Matt. This is what they want. They want people falling off high things into... I'm surprised they don't have the diving horse. Remember the diving horse at the old carnivals and fairs that used to jump off a goddamn 30-foot high tower into a teacup full of water?
Because
you know they ought to do that next.
Things, but they don't want to think anyone could ever get hurt for this.
But no, they don't have to think that anyone, because they already have. Why do you think Britt Baker's been in a fucking wheelchair for the last, 3 months? Because one of their untrained fucking outlaw girl wrestlers picked another one up and threw her on top of her fucking leg. Think of how many... Matt Hardy's goddamn... It looked like he got hit in the head with an axe because Sammy Guevara went into a fucking homicidal rage and forgot everything he knew about working when he pegged that chair at him. Off the top... Everybody...
Marco Stunt. They put him in there with Jake Hager.
Marco Stunt. He's walking around in a walking boot. The boot's as big as he is. Everybody gets busted open. Hard way blood. They're doing all this shit that is not only not wrestling, so therefore you don't learn it in wrestling school. You just kind of figure it out in the backyard like a lot of these guys did, but they're trying to do more of it. So of course the injuries are going to get worse. So welcome to the fucking club. Somebody's going to really get hurt bad. If they haven't already, we'll see how Matt is. But what do you expect? When literally the only fucking bump that they bother to gimmick is the finish bump on these crash pads or through these phony stages that they do, and then you can tell it's as phony as a football bat. But the rest of the shit, they're just telling, "Oh, figure it out as you go." It's stupid. This shit, this furniture and all these blunt instruments won't work with you. Anyway, speaking of not working, the next match. We've been waiting for this one, Brian. The Mimosa Mayhem match. They literally had 2 500-gallon tubs of mimosa on either side of the ring. And to win, of course, you got to get dumped in the mimosa or pinned or submitted, like that's going to happen. And this match started 3 hours into this fucking fiasco. Not 4 hours counting the pre-show, right? So it started while they were just getting started. The announcers were trying to beg people at home to believe that Doc Sampson actually cleared Matt Hardy to continue, because that's when everybody was on Twitter going how irresponsible, et cetera, et cetera. I'll tell you what was irresponsible, leaving anybody sit there for 4 hours through what they'd seen and then put this out in front of them. I'm surprised that there wasn't somebody taking some shots at fucking Jerichovid from the grassy knoll on this one for making them watch that. I mean, here's the thing. You can't even talk about this as a match. It wasn't. It was a make-a-wish for Jericho to give Pockets a thrill. It was a make-a-wish for Jericho to wish that he's somehow accepted by the younger generation for doing this. And the problem I have is the baby faces in this company all act like douchebags and look like shit physically or both. And the heels are all comedians and not remotely serious. And the few talents that they have are hamstrung by not just amateur, but rotten amateur booking and being mixed in with a crew of, as we've mentioned, fence post turtles that are way out of their leagues. And this is a classic example of it. Because somebody out there in Twitter land likes this fucking cretin and thinks it's funny. Chris Jericho has to dignify this with his presence. And, I mean, they didn't use the ring very much, which is fine, because why not? They fought in the stagey and contrived almost falls around the vat of orange juice. And that's the thing. If Chris had not brought this on himself, I would be sad for him. Because you are seeing a great mainstream wrestling career ending in a fucking popcorn fart in a tub of orange juice. But he brought it on himself, and he's willingly doing it for, as they used to say, for money, marbles, or chalk. It wouldn't make any difference. Why? He didn't have to. So Jericho walked the idiot through a couple of spots and got the Boston Crab that he's beaten The Rock or Steve Austin or Triple H or whoever with, and Pockets just crawled to the edge of the ring, got a fucking pitcher, filled it with orange juice, and threw it in his face to break the hold. Well, if only we'd told The Rock that 20 years ago. So when I saw that, I fast-forwarded 2 or 3 minutes, and they were on the ropes, and Pockets knocked Jericho into the fucking orange juice. Good fucking God. 3 hours and 20 minutes into this fiasco, plus an hour for the pre-show, and we're watching Jericho swimming in orange juice. I double dog dare somebody within the sound of my voice. Take a DVD of this to Vince McMahon's house and stick it in his, when I was there, it was a VHS, but if he's got the DVD player on top of his fucking TV in his goddamn den, stick it in there and show it to him. It'll take 10 years off his life. He will say, my God, this is the promotion that we thought what might be competition. This is the company that we actually fucking gave guys raises to keep them from going to. It'll take 10 years off his fucking life, and he will forevermore be happy that he did not match whatever offer they gave to Chris Jericho. Because this is a better, and I'm sorry, if you guys want to talk about out there, you fucking AEW All Friends wrestling fans, you want to talk about guys getting on TV because they've been selling out fucking park benches and goddamn phone booths, that's one thing. But if you want to talk about anybody of any meaningful standing in the wrestling industry that's a veteran, that has made big money, that has fucking mainstream recognition, this is a goddamn billboard why they will not want to go to AEW ever. Because this shit might happen to them. And Vince is, if he's watching it, he's fucking laughing at Chris Jericho, and and the only thing he ain't laughing about is he's calling up whoever's in charge, whether it's Mark Carrano or Triple H or whoever's in charge of this, saying, we gave guys raises to not go here. Take them all back. What'd you think?
This was trash. But that's what I expected it to be, trash. I don't think this feud has done anything to help Chris Jericho. We could argue about if it's elevated Orange Cassidy or not. I don't know where they go with him from here. Chris Jericho comes out of it looking worse. I think if Vince McMahon gets shown the
video... He's out of your title picture, isn't it? At this point?
I don't know. It's AEW. Is Orange Cassidy in the title picture?
I'm talking about Jericho being out of it. Now, you can't take it seriously. Oh, yeah, I'm going to go fight fucking John Moxley. I just got beat by Orange Cassidy and dunked.
This guy was so good the first several months of AEW as the world champion. It's amazing to think back. That isn't that long ago. It's a year ago that he was the champion and he was the top heel and he was excelling in that role. Now, he's just garbage.
You know what happened?
The Matt Hardy feud, the drone feud, into the Orange Cassidy feud, because he thought Orange Cassidy had something going for him, and he wanted to latch onto that like he does with everything else.
No, you know what? No, see, now we're starting to see. And you're right. He was great. When this thing first started, Chris Jericho said, okay, I'm going to prove I'm the fucking guy in a company. Even though I've been the WWF champion, they never thought I was the guy. I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to lead this company. I'm going to carry it on my back. I'm going to be the champion. I'm going to get a lot of guys over. I'm going to cause a lot of attention. And that's what he was doing at first. And then he got a look at the rest of the talent. And then he got a look at Tony Khan's booking. And then he got a look at the way things were going. And he said, okay, here's what I need to do. I need to cash this check. And I need to earn this money. Even though I don't give a fuck that I make myself look like an idiot, I'm going to at least fucking have some fun with Matt Hardy. And then, oh, by the way, who is the mark promoter, the angel, as we used to say in the business? We found an angel to open up Pittsburgh. The angel, the money mark, is Tony Khan. Who's his favorite goofy outlaw wrestler he signed? Orange Cassidy. I'll work with him. So what he's doing is he's basically he's seen that it was a lost cause with the booking and the rest of the talent. It couldn't be what he wanted it to be, so he stopped being serious and started playing along.
No way.
To bilk Tony Khan for the rest of his money.
No way. He didn't start playing along. He's part of the problem.
Oh, he's part of the problem because he's playing along. Yeah,
no, he's not playing. These are his stupid ideas. He has
he's
stupid sensibilities. He likes the crap he does.
He's working with the money mark's favorite fucking indie mud show wrestler. And he's fucking cutting promos on drones because he's seen it's hopeless. It's not going to be a serious wrestling promotion, and he's just jacking off.
He was playing along with Vince when he didn't get to do all the stupid shit he really wanted to do, and instead he went for Vince's vision. That was him playing along. This is him playing with his friends.
I don't know. Regardless, there's a lot of...
And if you put that tape in for Vince, before he even laughed about the state of this match and his opponent and everything else, he's going to say, what happened to Chris Jericho? He's twice the size that he was when he was here last time.
Yes, he would. He would say that too. He would say, wait a minute, is that Sebastian Bach? No, he wouldn't, because Vince doesn't know who Sebastian Bach is. Anyway.
But you give Jericho a lot of credit, and I don't think he's done anything to earn that credit.
What credit was I giving him? He's been involved in the absolute most embarrassing pieces of shit that I've ever seen in a wrestling business, all of it this year.
Because you make it sound like he's shrugging and saying, hey, I'll just go with the flow here, as opposed to, I think I have a lot of valuable contributions to this garbage show.
He knows that none of this is valuable.
You think he knows that? You think?
Yes.
He said the Stadium Stampede match was one of the things he's most proud of in his career.
Well, yeah, because the money mark fucking liked it. I'm just telling you,
he liked it.
He can't be Chris Jericho is not this stupid of a man. He's pleasing this idiot that's paying him a lot of money because he sees that it can't be done in a serious fashion because they don't have the fucking resources or the talent or the backing. That's just what I'm saying. So he's just jacking off. But he knows better.
I agree with that, but you and I disagree about whether he's playing along or whether he's having a good time doing what all the things he wanted to do.
He never wanted to. Oh, all right, okay.
You don't think Chris Jericho wakes up in the morning and says, I wish I could just be thrown into a vat of mimosa? I guarantee you he has had that thought before.
So the final match of the evening.
And maybe if it was Moscow Mules, Jim Ross would have been a little more excited about this event.
Hey, come on now. Actually, maybe if they'd have thrown everybody in a vat of Moscow Mules, the matches might have been better. It couldn't have been any worse.
Did you hear about all the crap he was getting for this show?
Who? What?
Jim Ross.
What, for slacking off and giggling at everything, or?
Well, not just his general demeanor on all of these shows lately, but during the Dark Order match, Anna Jay, when she entered the ring, Jim Ross said something along the lines of, did she have a wardrobe malfunction? Or am I, or do I wish she did?
Oh, yeah. No, he said Anna Jay, because when they carried her, one of the heels carried Anna Jay around the side of the ring. She was grabbing at her top. I assume it got jerked around in the scuffle with Brandy. And he said, did Anna Jay have a wardrobe malfunction, or is that just wishful thinking on my part? And then they moved on. What? Somebody had a problem with that?
Oh, everyone. People lost their minds over that.
What?
It got in the New York Daily News.
What? Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, back up. What? Why did the New York Daily News even talk about this pay-per-view, much less that particular line?
Because enough people made comments about it on social media. Enough people spoke out about how they were bothered by the fact that the pervy Jim Ross that we see on Twitter is now coming onto the broadcast.
What the fuck? Well, what do they think Anna Jay's out there for? If she looked like 10 feet of mud fence, she wouldn't be out there.
Can you imagine Gordon Soley saying that?
Well,
Can you imagine Lance Russell saying, Here's
Rick
Rude and the Angel. Oh, I hope to see your tits. Like,
no, Lance Russell would never have said that, but that's almost any modern wrestling. Lawler would have sure said it. Almost any modern wrestling commentator would have said it. I sure would have said it. Because what the fuck she's there for? She's there as one of the fucking heels to look good in that fucking outfit. She's the only member of the Dark Order that looks like anything. It's not like, boy, I'd like to have seen her titties bouncing around. No, it's wardrobe malfunction, or is that just wishful thinking on my part? And move on. Who gives a shit? I guess let me tell you something. If anybody watching this show had watched everything on this show and they had a problem with that line and nothing else, they're fucking brain dead. You've got a malignant brain tumor the size of a fucking pumpkin that has taken over your goddamn cognitive thought processes, people.
Here's the article from the Daily News by, I'm trying to see the name of the person who wrote it, Kate Feldman. Longtime wrestling announcer Jim Ross botched a call during Saturday night's All Out pay-per-view. I don't know if I would call it a botched call.
Botched a call. Oh, my God.
When he wished a female wrestler would have had a wardrobe malfunction on the air.
What?
Quote, did Anna Jay have a wardrobe malfunction? Or is that just wishful thinking in my book? The 68-year-old commentator said of the 22-year-old wrestler. The other announcers quickly moved back to calling the 8-man tag match inside the ring. Jay.
No, they didn't. They went back to fucking giggling amongst themselves and laying out so they didn't have to fucking talk about the match. But go ahead.
Jay, who had been fighting with Brandy Rhodes, AEW's chief brand officer and wrestler, was pulled off outside the ring by teammate Stu Grayson and could be seen in the corner of the screen adjusting her top. Here's a quote from Jim Ross. Didn't mean to offend anyone on the wardrobe malfunction line. Weak attempt at humor. Sorry. Ross tweeted out Saturday night after the show. Now lighten up.
Yeah.
But by the way, he needs to stop using that. I love Stripes as much as anyone, at least the first half of Stripes. But you're not Sergeant Hulka. Retire the lighten up Francis line. You use it too much, you goof. But anyway, let me finish with this article.
I didn't know where that was from there.
Yeah, it's from the scene where they're introducing each other in Stripes. But anyway.
Well, I just say lighten up, calm down, go fuck yourself, whatever's applicable.
Blow me.
Blow me, yeah.
But fans didn't take his sexist comment or his apology well. Not really what I was hoping for as a fan tonight, one woman tweeted. And then here's another tweet. Jim Ross has been in the business for decades and made immense contributions. At his peak, he was the best commentator in wrestling history. But it's time for him to go, another fan wrote.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
A spokesperson.
They have, every single one of them have lost their fucking minds. Except, I don't believe the first comment. They said, one woman said, like there was a woman watching this.
A spokesperson for AEW did not immediately return a request for comment.
Yeah, in other words, they said, blow me. You fucking idiots. Jesus Christ. All right, the last match in this parade of terror that once again we were hoping against hope for the AEW title, MJF versus Moxley. And I will tell you this, to be quite honest with you, when it was over with, I considered this, Brian, one of the best, if not the best, babyface performances I have seen in AEW to date. I really thought that. The problem was, it was the heel that was doing it. Did you see what I saw?
I didn't think of it in that context. What did you see?
People, go back and watch the match, and you tell me that if there had been fans in that arena, that by the time that MJF, bleeding, battered, having been given 18 fucking finishes, on his knees started firing back up at Jon Moxley, that MJF would not have gotten a huge babyface fucking response. This match, if you go and watch it, thinking in your mind who is the babyface and who is the heel from the start, MJF was Ricky Morton and Moxley was the heel. And I'll tell you why. They started out as a wrestling match. Imagine that. I think they actually locked up. That may have been a first for the night. MJF, as I've mentioned, he's got poise, he's got timing, the way he moves in the ring, he's a natural worker, plus he has the facials, the heel attitude, the body language, whatever. So they wrestle for a minute or two, and then Moxley's got to do the fucking dive, right? Because everybody else does it, so why shouldn't I do it? But then from the time that, go back and watch, folks, Moxley does the dive, now they're not 3 minutes in. And after he does the dive, they spend 1 minute and 45 seconds on the floor while Moxley beats up MJF in front of Wardlow and the referee, who did absolutely nothing about it, in the opening minutes of the match. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people are going to say, well, the psychology should be that the heel or that the babyface is mad at what the heel's done to him, so he's naturally going to fucking open up hot, right? Well, goddamn, opening up hot and dropping the atomic bomb on Hiroshima is a little bit different. Besides the fact that until a few days ago, Moxley had pretty much one-upped MJF, as we've mentioned, at every turn and fucking hospitalized his lawyer and whatever the fuck else before they finally got that heat last week. Shouldn't the babyface beat the fucking heel up in the ring first in a reasonably legal fashion, even if he is mad? So then later on, when the fucking heel gets heat on the babyface, then the babyface blows his big comeback. Then he can take him out on the floor and he can bash him in the rails and he can hit him with the chairs and he can throw him across the furniture because now you're going up. Moxley is such a fucking ultra-violent goof for all this garbage, hardcore deathmatch indie wrestling. He's got to get that shit in 3 minutes of the match. They spend 2 minutes out on the floor. What else? In front of Wardlow, so he's a fucking limp dick. The referee has no authority. And how are you going to fucking kick that up later on after you've already fought all around the ring? Can Moxley not have a match without doing indie garbage bullshit? The answer now we know is no, he can't. They got back in the ring for a little bit. Then they did an apron spot where MJF yanked his arm down, Moxley's arm onto the apron. Moxley was going to give him some fucking wing doodle on the goddamn apron, and MJF yanks his arm onto the apron. That's the heat spot. Was that the most contrived way to use the apron ever in history? What the fuck? Can't they do anything in the ring? A heat spot. Get up on the fucking top rope. Let MJF fucking run up real quick. Give him a divorce court. Off the top onto the end of the ring. Hurt his arm where he could take a bump and everybody could see it instead of out on the floor again. I like watching MJF, but not against this guy. So now MJF is getting heat on the babyface, who for the first 5 minutes of the match has broken every rule in the book. And MJF is getting the heat on him by out wrestling him. Do you see? They get arm locks and hold him down. You got a hold on him. The heel is wrestling. The babyface was fucking brawling all around the goddamn building. Noted the lack of crowd noise. They go back to the floor and Moxley boomerangs MJF into the fucking ring post and then goes in. And how ridiculous is this? That he was trying to, was it Rambo his shoulder back into place? Was it Rambo Rambo sewed himself up? Who put his own? No, it was the guy from Lethal Weapon. Mel Gibson puts his own shoulder back in. Like it's dislocated. He's going to put it back in by hitting the turnbuckle pad. No, you're just hitting your goddamn sore shoulder, you fucking moron. But that was to cover up MJF getting his color because MJF comes up bleeding. Brian?
Yes?
Did you believe going into this match that MJF was going to win this match?
I was hoping MJF would win this match, yes.
But did you believe in your heart of hearts that MJF was going to come out of this the new champion?
I don't...
No, you didn't believe it for a second they were going to switch the belt. Go ahead and admit it.
I didn't. I was hoping they would. I didn't think they would.
Did anything that they have done on television up to possibly the last 2 minutes of last Wednesday night's program give you the impression that MJF was going to win this fucking match?
No, it gave me the impression that the whole feud was a joke.
Then why is MJF the one bleeding? Why is Moxley not bleeding? Why is the champion not in jeopardy? this match was, and once again, I'm sure MJF, 24 years old, he's not going to tell the big ex-WWF star what to do. But you have a fucking supposed hot angle with a challenger that nobody believes is going to win, that the booking has not done anything to make people believe he's going to win. So when the match starts out, pretty much the babyface breaks every rule in the book, beats up the fucking heel, including taunting him. Come on, get up so I can beat you up some more, until he about gets tired of it. Then he makes a mistake, and the heel gets heat on the heel gets heat on the babyface by wrestling. And then Moxley makes a comeback. And to make sure that everybody knows that he's still not in trouble and that MJF has no chance, now MJF is the one that's bleeding a gusher instead of Moxley. Then, in this weird, perverse manner of supposed psychology booking that the younger folks like to use, Moxley hits a black hole slam just like Abyss on MJF on the floor. MJF was trying to sell it like a dead man, and dumb fuck. It jerks him up and rolls him back in the ring. As soon as he rolls MJF back in the ring, watch this, kids. As soon as he rolled him back in the ring from the black hole slam, as he goes to get MJF in the ring, he tells MJF, get my arm. Because MJF suddenly, after being black hole slammed 10 seconds before on the concrete floor, now grabs and takes an arm lock on fucking Moxley so that Moxley can reverse into that backslide fucking deal thing, whatever the fuck. So he actually, and you can see him call it to get my arm. So the guy that just got fucking power slammed on the concrete has to suddenly go on offense to get a fucking arm lock so that Moxley can fucking come out of it. Because that's the only thing in the world that Moxley could do right there. He couldn't do anything else. Then, so then when he gets the arm, then that's when he fucking turns into the goddamn thing where he picks MJF up and hits the Gotch pile driver and gets a 2 count. Black hole slam, guys, back up. Gotch pile driver, 2 count. Bleeding, takes this abuse. On his knees now, fighting back, throwing chops. He becomes the sympathetic underdog. MJF is the toughest guy in wrestling. Nothing could beat him. But that's the problem. That's in their little pea brains, because they're still playing checkers and they've never talked to any experts. Moxley was doing MJF a favor by hitting him with all his stuff and letting him kick out. Show how good he is. You dumb shit. No. You've got it completely ass backwards. You turned this kid babyface. If there had been fans there after MJF had gone through all the abuse and mistreatment he had gone through, he's bleeding, he's getting these big moves hit, and he still keeps fighting back, the people would have been chanting MJF, MJF. I'm telling you, this was, with people in the building, this was a fucking turn. Not intended to be, but it would have been. And Moxley's taunting him, get up, kid. MJF spits in Moxley's face. You think that would not have been a huge pop from the crowd? Now the announcers are trying to fucking sell it. Well, the disrespect. Disrespect? It's what Steve Austin would have fucking done in the same position on his knees in front of that guy. The people would have cheered. And then when MJF got the fucking Fujiwara, the people would have fucking blown. They would have sensed an underdog, somebody they wanted to cheer for. He switched the complexion of the thing completely. And if all of this was leading to MJF winning the fucking belt, you would have made a new superstar, because he persevered through all that shit. When MJF hit that heat seeker, that leaping pile driver thing he does, that was a fucking false finish the fans would have bought. And they would have booed that Moxley kicked out of it. I guarantee you. And then Mox reverses the fucking second heat seeker. And at that point, even the announcers are saying, well, MJF sure has guts. Boy, he's acquitted himself much better than we would have thought. It's a double turn. The punches, the headbutts, the slaps on their knees. Finally, MJF gets the low blow for the 2 count. When they distracted the referee out of the sleeper, I guarantee you the people would have fucking cheered the low blow. And then he hits the crossroads for the 2 count. This part, okay, now, after all of that, if you don't mind the fact that the only real heel in your company has been switched babyface by the way that this match was put together, MJF is cooking like a heel should be in the closing moments of this thing, and the babyface is in jeopardy. Finally, the people are in the right place. MJF hits the low blow, 2 count. MJF hits crossroads, 2 count. And now the heel, supposedly, MJF has to cheat. Wardlow gets up and draws the referee, throws the diamond ring in, but bungles the fucking toss. Okay, it hit him, boom, and dropped down, and that thing, MJF's bleeding anyway. He may not have been able to really fucking find it. But he went down to get it with the blood in his eyes and everything, and right as he sees it, he looks up. Moxley has the opportunity. They lock eyes. Mox doesn't fucking goddamn stand there and fucking twinkle toes like Olivier would have. He grabs him, hooks the band move, his DDT finish. 1, 2, 3. Finally, not only did they distract the referee halfway decently, they gave MJF an out. The finish worked because MJF finally has the champ going. It looks like finally, after all this time, he might be legitimate, a threat, and win this thing. But he can't finish him, so he's got to cheat, because that's what the heel does. But he was foiled, because heels sometimes are not good cheaters. And then the babyface had Moxley had the reason to go back on his word, his agreement, and use the band hold to retain his title because MJF had tried to cheat first. But MJF still had an out, because if that goddamn Wardlow had tossed the ring right. So the last 60, 90 seconds, everybody was right back in the same place they were supposed to be. But for the rest of the fucking match, which was also very long, now that I've said this, do you see where people would have gotten behind MJF in this fucking match the way it was laid out?
I agree with what you're saying, except I don't know if the AEW fans would have gotten behind him over Moxley.
Normal people would have. I'm not the AEW fans, they are what they are. I'm talking about a normal audience of people there to see a wrestling event instead of a goddamn live taping of Benny Hill. If you just got a group of 10,000 people in an arena, MJF would have been the babyface. By the time it was over with, they would have been cheering for him. And it's not because he didn't try. It's because he's fucking being led by the king of ultra-violence, who ought to go back to fucking whatever barn CZW is working in this fucking season. Anyway, we love MJF. He did the best he could here. We've said it before. Moxley's matches are not good. And it's too much indie bullshit instead of trying to create stars and simulate athletic conflict.
You know, there was some really talented guys on this show. Obviously, the Matt Hardy incident, the shooting star press botch, various things, the crowd being out of it. Despite the talented guys on this show, I have to say, for me, this was one of the worst pay-per-views I ever saw. It was a struggle from around the time of the Battle Royal on to have to sit here and just everything went on forever. The only thing that didn't go on forever was the Matt Hardy incident. And who knows how long that would have gone on.
Yeah, and they were already, goddamn, they went at least half the time, if not shorter, that they were probably going to go because of the injury. I'm not saying it should have gone any longer, but how long would this fucking fiasco of a show have been if they'd gone their allotted time? And why did they feel the need when they got a match that went short to make it up by going longer elsewhere? It just will never fucking end. Because it's a basement booker that has had fantasies of putting these names down on paper and getting them to do his will, and he doesn't want it to end, even though the fans do. In some cases, the fans would like a few of these things if it never started. Once again, are they defending this? Who's defending this? Who's defending any of this? Who's saying any of these matches were good?
I'm not saying anyone's defending it. There are some people who enjoyed the show in spite of itself, but you're hearing from a lot of people, including AEW fans, who had a lot of problems with this show, who felt the energy, the Matt Hardy incident, the management of the Matt Hardy incident. Just the show didn't work. It was really not good. And even the most hardcore AEW fans are kind of having to admit this was a miss, a giant miss, and a giant exposure of what AEW is.
There is a lot of times where you'll have a bad show and or things don't work out and the cake doesn't always rise, etc., blah, blah, blah. But under the best of circumstances, if the show comes off like you wanted it to, it's good. If this show had come off like they wanted it to, it still wouldn't have been any good, because a lot of the reason why it wasn't any good was because they meant to do some of this shit on purpose. And I don't know what you do about that. Otherwise than just write him off and say they will never learn. He's not going to learn. Nobody's going to tell him. Enough of the people that he's listening to think this shit is good because it involves them and the only thing they're able to do.
One of the worst pay-per-views I've ever seen. I've seen some bad pay-per-views, and there were talented people on this show, but one of the worst pay-per-views I've ever seen. You know, and the good thing is, I don't know if you were going here, but I'll set you up in case you want to. The good thing is, it's a business expense for me. I can write this off. I have to think there's a lot of other people who paid $50 for this.
They might need to retain an attorney. Well, before we get there, I want to say one thing real quick and I'll finish up. This right here is the reason why that I am way, way past the point of disinterest in having anything to do with what they call wrestling these days. Not just for this company, but for any company, because it's all over the place. But this takes the cake. I would not have lasted 2 hours in that locker room, backstage, or in a production meeting with these people before I got in my car and told them all to kiss my fucking big fat white ass. I can't imagine why some of the people who know better are doing these things. And that's why I am just being Jim Cornette, and I'm totally ambivalent on what any of these people think about me and what I have to say. Because even if they're not doing the shit, they're complicit in the shit. Therefore, I blame them for the shit. So I just, if anybody needs an illustration as to why I am not now, nor will I ever again, unless Bobby Fulton runs a wrestling event, will I ever again appear on a wrestling event. This is why. Because people are doing this kind of shit. They've convinced enough of these goofy fans that they've got that it's supposed to be this way. And the people who know the difference will not say, oh, not no, but hell no. You're not going to do this if I'm on the show. I've got some fucking pride and self-respect. I'll be home. That's why I wash my hands of all of these people. And I will be sitting here calmly, hopefully most of the time, telling all of y'all what's wrong with it. Because that's the only goddamn contribution you can make anymore to this shit, is to explain what's wrong with it. I just wish that more of these people were a little smarter so they could pick up what I'm saying quicker, and I wouldn't have to go into so much detail about what's fucking wrong with them. And I'll say one more thing, and then we'll get back to your segue that you tried a minute ago. Also, here's the thing. When you talked about the people, the AEW fans, when they're back in the building, how the AEW fans would react, here's another thing we got to think about. These people wrestling for AEW in front of the AEW fans who react unlike any other wrestling audience in the world, if they get used to doing shit that those people like, then it will ruin everybody for actually having a regular wrestling match in any other promotion. Because then they'll just get all those bad habits. So I sincerely hope somebody maybe should moonlight on a local independent just to try to keep their game up. If you already know how to work, work somewhere else besides AEW just so you won't lose the talent. That's my little piece of advice. And for anybody who feels like that they were the victim of a bait and switch because they were advertised a professional wrestling event and what they got was a local stage show version of the play that the Gilligan's Island's castaways put on when Harold Hecuba landed on the island. How's that for a reference? Then I suggest that you call and gain immediate representation from somebody to get you your money back.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. He'll sue the rest.
Yes, now that I think about it, Stephen P. New, if you called him up at 888-692-8084 or contacted him at newlawoffice.com and said you wanted to get your money back for a bait and switch on the AEW pay-per-view, he'd say, stick it up your ass because it's your fault. What a sucker you were. This thing wasn't going to be worth shit anyway. However, if you've got real issues, if you've got real troubles otherwise than being taken advantage of, you know, I figure if you spent $50 on this pay-per-view, it's just like I always tell people when I see a guy that goes in and every week he gets a $1 lottery ticket. I say, if you just give me that dollar, then at the end of the year, we'd both have something. I'd shake your hand and I've had $52. But as it is, you're just buying a lottery ticket every week and you're getting fucking nothing. And at the end of the year, that's what you'll have. But if you've got real problems, we've talked about it. Stephen P. New is the Mother Teresa of West Virginia. The coal companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the car companies, the major corporations that have damaged you or your loved ones or your family or immediate social circle in some way through their greed, avarice, negligence, and other chicanery, Stephen P. New is your resort to call in times of crisis. 888-692-8084, newlawoffice.com. I don't think he can get your money back for the AEW pay-per-view, but he can get you paid if you have been wronged by some evil conglomerate.
Well, speaking of evil conglomerates...
Boy, that was an easy segue.
That was the best one we've ever done. Have you been following everything that broke last week after we were done with the experience, with Vince McMahon and WWE sending out a letter to talent notifying them that they are no longer allowed to have any third-party deals? They have to end these deals, whatever they have, within 30 days?
Well, yes, I was keeping up with this, and I think everybody was dumbfounded at what a third-party deal was. Because I know they quit doing third-party promoter deals. I was the last one in the office to do them, where you would book the contracted talent to third-party promoters on their days off to make them some extra money. But they quit doing that because the rings were iffy and they didn't know whether a guy was going to get hurt or not or whatever. And then they started booking everybody and making them more money, and they eliminated that feature. What these third parties are now is the Twitches and Twitters and Cameos and all that stuff of the world, right? That's what they call third parties now.
I would think so. YouTube also, I would include in that.
Well, see, that's the thing. Their statement, they didn't actually come out and say what these third parties were, right? And that's why all the guys were up in arms like, well, what does this mean? Is this mean I've got to give up YouTube, or I've got to give up this, or I've got to give up that? And they're supposed to be clarifying this. But here's the thing. I've said this before. The guys are horribly underpaid. The guy, in relation to what any other sports franchise pays its talent, the guys are also not treated as employees, even though they have to, whenever the office says jump, they got to say how high and do everything, blah, 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 be there, dress the certain way, call themselves a certain thing. They fit every requirement of an employee, but they are treated as independent contractors, so they don't get benefits, blah, 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 health insurance, all that good stuff. So they have now, and in a pandemic, they're not running shows, so they've now found a way to make extra money. You know which side of that I fall down on after that preamble, Brian?
Which side is that?
The office is right and the boys are wrong. And I'm surprised it's got this far, and I'm surprised nobody's brought it up. In the 80s and 90s, this was before social media, Twitter and YouTube and Twitch and Cameo and etc., when everybody didn't have a broadcasting fucking facility in their pocket. If you were under contract to the WWF, you couldn't do an interview with the Poughkeepsie Bugle newspaper unless it was cleared by the office. You couldn't be on AM radio in fucking Gulfport at 5 a.m. unless it was cleared by the office. These guys are doing their own thing under their own names while being advertised as and publicly seen on national TV as different people on the fucking WWE television program. I would have nipped that in the bud long ago. You've got a guy that's a Russian on TV, but on fucking Twitch or on Twitter, he's using his real name and he's from fucking Cleveland. Or you've got people that are supposed to be in this torrid affair, but on Cameo or on fucking whatever, the Facebook, they're married to other people. Or they actually have their real names or their gimmick name, so-and-so, as played by so-and-so. How long would it have taken Vince McMahon in the 80s or early 90s, when he had control of his fucking company and his faculties, if a guy that was presented as someone on his television program had come out in the newspapers or on national television, because that's the equivalent now of the internet and you disseminate knowledge publicly. That's the way you would do it back then. Newspaper, magazine, television, and say, well, I'm really not this guy. My real name's so-and-so, and I really don't have anything to do with this at all. He would have fired him. I would have fired him. Every booker, every promoter would have fired him. The only way your guys' real names got out in the fucking public perception is when they were arrested or sued and it made the newspaper, and then you tried to cover it up. One successful part of booking a wrestling roster in a wrestling company is having complete, when you know what you're doing, when you're a good booker, complete and total control over your talent and the way that they are advertised, publicized, and perceived in public. So all these guys going out there doing their own thing, this evil heel really fucking plays video games and contributes to charity. It's all bullshit. Be who you're supposed to be every time that you are mentioned, talked about, appear, or speak in public. Be who you're supposed to be. So all this...
Hold on.
Wait a minute. I'm about to get to a point. So all this fucking bullshit, business exposing, gimmick exposing, third-party shit that they all do as private citizens, they can do after they're off WWE television when they're not wrestling stars anymore. And in the meantime, there's a simple way to cut this shit out and concentrate on fucking getting talent over and not having these outside fucking influences and these third parties. Make the guys employees, give them insurance and pay them right. They won't have to fucking get on Cameo.
Well, boom.
I think the talent is wrong for doing all this. It's not something you should do in a wrestling company. And now that it's possible to do this with social media, since the WWE is currently the most well-financed wrestling company in history, they ought to say, no, you're not doing this. We're going to pay you. We're going to pay you however much money that you've agreed to or that you want to agree to without you doing this. Either agree to it, sign, we'll pay you, don't do this outside shit, or don't agree to it. We won't sign you, go do your outside shit. You can't double dip. If you're not, hey, if there was guys smart enough out there to fucking be all over social media and get themselves over as who they're supposed to be, like MJF, that'd be one thing. That's fine. But your real names, violating your fucking gimmick, doing things out of character for of who you're supposed to be, no. But at the same time, especially for these underneath guys, they've got to make it worth their while to fucking not be working shows and et cetera, et cetera. And maybe they could finally figure out after what's it been, 10 years, how to pay royalties off that fucking network. Because everybody's royalty checks went to shit once that thing came up. So yeah, and it's always, the contracts have always been that way. We own your intellectual property, your likeness, your blah, 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 even your real name for the term of the contract. Some people had that fucking sideways. How can they own their real name? They can't own their real name forever, but while they're under contract to the WWE, they own everything about them, which is another reason why I'm not going to sign any more contracts ever again. But I don't need to. So both sides are correct in the way they're looking at it.
I think if they were employees, you'd be correct. But the reason those contracts wouldn't hold up if anyone really wanted to fight it in court is because they're independent contractors. And WWE does not have the right to tell these people that they can't go out there and do things on the side. In terms of people using their real name, they're doing that because that they've been able to get away with. If it was, Hulk Hogan, well, I shouldn't say that because he owns his own name. But if it was a guy using a name that WWE owns, even if it's a name the guy picked for himself while under their employ, then, WWE would go out and stop them. People are using their own names to get around that. People are using their own names to play video games.
I know.
Twitch and stuff.
It's fucking ridiculous.
And your argument about them exposing the business, that's not the WWE's argument. So I'm not even going to throw anything towards that.
They're making themselves look goofy. Ronda Rousey had some kind of aura about her as this badass judo champion, Olympic champion, chick that would kick your ass. And now she's on the internet playing a saxophone and video games and feeding chickens. They don't know how to keep themselves over.
This is WWE wanting to take the money that people are making on side deals. And this is also WWE getting upset by things like, AJ Styles destroyed Paul Heyman on Twitch and it got out there. It's not about AJ Styles using his real name. It's about him exposing behind the scenes stuff in the company.
Well, and that's true also. Once again, you always had to have clearance to do an interview because they wanted to make sure you weren't going to say something they didn't want you to say. This is not new. Anybody that's gone into that company and think that you have any freedom to do anything, you're crazy. But I'm just saying, when so many guys are doing so much goofy shit that's detrimental to the way they're being presented and or perceived by the public, of course the office doesn't want them to do all this stupid shit on fucking other platforms, but they need to pay them.
But they need to be employees
to make up for that. Yeah. Well, they need to be employees, or they need to pay them enough to where they don't fucking feel like they need to do that because it's mutually exclusive. You can't do both.
And let's talk a little bit about the history with this. Sergeant Slaughter was one of the top baby faces in the World Wrestling Federation in 1984. He ended up leaving because he signed his own deal with G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon said, all my talent is with me and my deal with LJN. No one's going to have their individual deal. And Sergeant Slaughter was gone. He was one of the top guys. Jesse Ventura left in 1990 because he signed his own video game deal with Sega, and Vince McMahon didn't want anyone to have their own individual deals. Jesse Ventura was gone from the WWF. Now, Jesse Ventura has been one of the people very vocal about the independent contractor clause, how bullshit it is with wrestling. Did you see the Andrew Yang tweets?
Yes. Good old Andrew. He's a fan. Hey, Vince, get your independent contractor shit straightened out.
Well, no, even beyond that. I have it in front of me. If I'm not the Secretary of Labor, I'm pretty confident I'll have his or her number to talk about the ridiculous classification of WWE wrestlers as independent contractors while controlling their name and likeness for years, even for something as benign as Cameo. That's what it is. What your argument is earlier, I think is valid only if they're employees. But if you're going to say that someone's an independent contractor, you have to treat them like an independent contractor. And that means you can't prevent them from doing anything else. You can't say, you only work for me, you can't work for anyone else, you're an independent contractor.
But you can if you... Here's the thing. If you tell me, Jim, I'm going to sign you to this contract for $1 million instead of $400,000, and you're going to be an independent contractor, but you can't do anything else. I wasn't making an extra $600 on the side anyway, Vince, so fine. You can still do it. You can write it. That's what I've said about the deals. They can make any deal that Vince wants to make. He can put any clause in, take any clause out, make any deal. He's done it a million times. There's been all kinds of customizations go on.
Brock Lesnar had sponsors on his gear for a while.
He got a Jimmy John, the fucking fat fuck that likes to go over and slaughter all the animals in Africa because he's a gutless, dickless wonder. And fuck Jimmy John and his fucking sandwiches, a piece of shit.
I wasn't familiar with Jimmy John. I didn't know about that. Okay.
You didn't know that? No, there's an actual Jimmy John. He's a fat, disgusting looking fuck that has pictures of himself smiling from ear to ear, sitting on top of giraffes and elephants and rhinoceroses that he uses his sandwich money to fly over to fucking Africa and murder, because they take all these rich white fucks like douchebag von fuckface and Thurston shitbag III, the two Trump twins. They go over there and they make up for their small dicks with their big guns, and they murder these beautiful animals. And Jimmy John the same way. That's why I wouldn't eat a goddamn Jimmy John sandwich if I was dying of starvation. That was the last food on the earth. He can go fuck himself. But that's why that fucking, because Vince said, okay, if Brock wants to have Jimmy John on his fucking ass, he can have Jimmy John on his ass because it's Brock. So Vince can make any specific deal he wants to make. The underlings just tell guys that he can't, because that way they don't all ask for special deals.
Did you see CM Punk's tweet?
I did not.
All right, guys, girls, are they going to fire everyone? Just keep doing you. Don't worry.
Well,
I like him more and more. I got to say something.
Yeah.
Since he left wrestling, and I liked him as a wrestler, he was really good. I like him more and more. The more I read his tweets and his attitude towards that company, I like him more and more.
And just the curmudgeonly stance, but and that's the thing.
I don't even think that's curmudgeonly. I think
it's not It's a gentle curmudgeon. But what are they can't fire y'all. What if everybody just said, well, you know what? Fuck it. There's a pandemic, all this other shit going on. We're just not going to show up. The same thing would have happened in the previous or in 40 years. He would have had to done something, but because the boys can't get together and can't stay together, it doesn't happen. And now that's another reason why this publicly traded mainstream company, big business bullshit, talking about him on Wall Street, that's horribly detrimental to the wrestling business, because now he's got legitimate people with their eyes on him, Andrew Yang, and I know the Secretary of Labor. Sooner or later, somebody's going to pay attention to this shit and take it seriously, even though it's wrestling.
They'll try to sell the company before they lose that independent contract.
But anyway, the whole thing is, I agree with both sides, and I explained why.
Did you see any of the other tweets from talent about this?
I have, but I'd love to hear you read me some.
The former Renee Paquette, the wife of John Moxley.
I believe I've heard they're married.
So, guess now would be a good time to launch my Twitch and Cameo. And by the way, there's a good example. Her name's Renee Paquette. She was Renee Young in WWE. I believe she chose that name, I read somewhere, because she was a fan of Neil Young. She doesn't own that name. She picked the name. They trademarked it. They own it. If she's the one who came up with the name, tell me how that's fair.
She should have gone to an independent show and used it first once there.
And then they would have said, you have to come up with something else because we're not going to use that.
Well, exactly. And see, I've said that's garbage too, because I always wanted, if I started guys, I wanted them to go away and become stars elsewhere and then have the same name so that when they come back to me, they can draw me some money because now they're big stars. That's the way wrestling worked. All this, nobody else could ever have this name. I understand why they do it, but it's just led to more of the fact that wrestling is turned into garbage. Guys can't travel. Guys can't be stars all around the world anymore.
We have a simple tweet from Paige. She just wrote, nope. Mick Foley says banning wrestlers from making extra money on third-party deals, Twitch, YouTube, Cameo, strikes me as a crummy thing to do. Just my opinion. And then Kevin Nash replied to that, especially as 1099 independent contractors. You're an employee if you have to show up at a specific time and are restricted monetary gains in your personal time. Ask for your health insurance coverage and profit sharing. And then the Andrew Yang tweet was retweeted by Dave Batista, who wrote, hashtag no comment, but I'm retweeting. #RealTalk. I mean, those are some pretty significant names. Kevin Nash, Mick Foley, and Dave Bautista, who are tweeting out their issues with this.
Well, because they know. And I don't know how they've gotten away with it for this long when they've been calling such attention to themselves. That's another reason why wrestling promoters like to always operate under the radar, except for with their audience, because too much scrutiny from people outside who don't understand how the business works invariably leads to something that's bad for the boys, the promoters, or both.
After the outcry because of this, WWE released a statement. I'll read you this. Much like Disney and Warner Brothers, WWE creates, promotes, and invests in its intellectual property, i.e. the stage names of performers like The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, Roman Reigns, Big E, and Braun Strowman. It is the control and exploitation of these characters that allows WWE to drive revenue, which in turn enables the company to compensate performers at the highest levels in the sports entertainment industry. Notwithstanding the...
Just not the highest levels in sports.
Is it the highest levels? I mean...
No, it's just not the highest levels in sports. But even the highest level in sports entertainment.
But compared to AEW, one night a week on AEW, you're allowed to have third-party deals. I mean, it'd be interesting to evaluate one deal versus the other.
Well, there are no third parties right now, so basically those guys are working one day a week, maybe. And they still can't get them on the show, but
Kip Sabian, for instance, he plugged his Twitch on the pay-per-view. He's allowed to do that. WWE's telling wrestlers you can't do that.
Well, and that was a response to WWE telling them they can do it. Well, see, we're baby faces over here, but back to reality. The real name business and trademarking of the real name is gaga, as we said. But in that quote, in that statement, they're not Disney because they're not protecting Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is a fictional person, a fictional character. These are real people. So then it becomes, are we trademarking Luke Skywalker, or are we trademarking Mark Hamill? Right?
Well, it's even beyond that. Are we trademarking Luke Skywalker and telling Mark Hamill he's not allowed to do anything on the side?
That's what they keep trying to make wrestling like acting, and these are performers playing a part, and that's why it's another of the many reasons why that's not the case and it doesn't work. It's real people. That's what Shitstain couldn't understand about his booking and what was wrong with it. It's what a lot of these idiots can't understand. You're not actors playing a part. You are that person. It's neither fish nor fowl. And now that this whole thing has exploded so big, they're finding out what a lot of the fucking drawbacks are. But for this to work perfectly, you are not an actor playing a part. You are that person, and whoever that person is, you never in public admit you are any different. That's how you get over, and that's how the shit draws. The WWE has fucking not only blown a hole in that by telling everybody it's all bullshit, but then they're trying to have their cake and eat it too by actually having all these people beholden and under contract to them and have to do what they say and nobody else while they're trying to copyright people instead of characters. Nobody else is going to play any of these people. They tried that before. The fake Razor and fake Diesel. It doesn't work. You can't get a fucking Dick Sargent just because Dick York has a bad back and suddenly you got Darren. Don't work that way in wrestling. They're all separate individuals.
To conclude this statement, notwithstanding the contractual language, it is imperative for the success of our company to protect our greatest assets and establish partnerships with third parties on a company-wide basis rather than at the individual level, which as a result will provide more value for all involved. I like that part. We're doing it for you. We're doing it for you.
Then I'd say, well, let me see some more of that value and then we'll talk.
What was the story? Who was it? Maybe it was even CM Punk now that I think about it. Where someone said like a filmmaker called WWE to request a certain wrestler appear in a film. And WWE was like, well, how about this guy instead? Or how about this guy? Like, they were pushing the wrestlers they wanted. There's an example of a third-party opportunity that actually went through the office, and the office was trying to divert it to someone else.
Well, that's happened a bunch.
I like CM Punk's take. No. What are they going to do? Fire everyone? Let them do that. Let's see the publicity for them firing everyone for being actual independent contractors.
Hey, you know what? Here's the whole problem, and we'll end this discussion. You know why that's not going to happen? Because all of the fucking trite, simpering fucking statements that they have the guys and girls make about living their dream to just be there is actually fucking true. And everybody would rather live their dream and just be there than be paid professionally or treated well. So, and that's what Vince has been working on for years now, because in the 80s and 90s, he had a bunch of fucking stars that had just sooner say fuck you and leave than do something stupid that they didn't want to do. In some cases, do something good they didn't want to do for some stupid reason. Now he's got a bunch of guys that just fucking show up and wait to be handed a script and verbiage and told what their match is going to be, and they're just happy to be there. There are no more stars. There are just cast members.
Okay, well, before we wrap up and play a few songs, 2 more quick questions, because there are some hot button issues people have been wondering.
You say they'll be quick, but I'll do something about that.
You will. You know, the next one, we've gotten several questions about this, and actually a couple just came in as we were recording. You obviously have had some issues recently with Dave Meltzer, and it's really more about, it's not about his reporting, it's more about his opinions and his takes. Is that correct? Is that a correct way of putting it?
Yes, it's because you, and I've still not said, fuck you, Dave, and I hope you die and you ought to be boiled in oil and whatever, because it really, it does hurt me that I still stand by that for historical knowledge and reporting, Dave has done the best job over the last 30 years of anybody. And he has interviewed and spoken with some of the biggest names in the business and some of the most important people. But over the last few years, he has lost his fucking mind. And he is, for whatever reason, will not just come out and shit on this stuff that he would have shit on in any of the intervening 25 years, the previous 25 years. He would have shit on it. He was shitting on stuff that drew money that the WWF did that sucked in the 80s. He was shitting on stuff that WCW did that drew money in the 90s because it was shit. But he won't just come out and say these fucking doofuses that have praised me and put me on a pedestal are in over their head and they're an embarrassment to the business. He's got to try to figure out some way to make excuses for them. And I'm sorry that he thinks that I just have a blind hatred of these people, but what I have is 2 eyes and clear vision when I've got my glasses on. And I understand the wrestling business and what they're doing right and wrong. And I don't want to suck up to anybody because I'm done with making friends in the wrestling business. I have all the friends in the wrestling business I want to have. As a matter of fact, there's a few I'm still looking to get rid of. I don't intend to court anyone's favor because I'm so disgusted at everybody in the wrestling business because of what they have been complicit in turning the wrestling business into. So I don't give a fuck. I'm just going to give my opinion. He can't hurt these people's feelings for whatever reason, which takes him out of the journalist position that he has coveted for so long and into a goddamn press agent position, because no matter how bad this shit sucks, no matter how many times that Twinkle Toes makes the face like his butt plug fell out, no matter how many times they fall on their ass, he's going to make excuses for them. And so that's what hurts me about a guy that I defended for so long, is knowing what the fuck he was talking about. And then he's got to spend a fucking year or more giving me the sideways elbows in the ribs when I'm not even talking about him. The worst thing I ever said for the longest time was, well, weed's legal in California. Dave can think what he wants. It's just so frustrating seeing an old friend of yours fucking lose it like that. But, he wants to be one of the cool kids, and he keeps giving me the elbow. So finally I had to give him a few elbows back. I will never forgive him for comparing those 2 fucking smart-ass douchebag middle schoolers to the Midnight Express. Especially Balding Buck to Bobby Eaton. There was no reason to insult Bobby like that. He had nothing to do with this whole discussion.
But again, to go back to what I said, your issues with him stem really from Dave's opinions about modern wrestling. And of course, and I agree with you on this, and I like Dave. You and I don't see eye to eye on Dave, but Dave needled you over and over and over again on his message board and on Twitter until you finally fired back. A lot of people say Jim Cornette destroys relationships. This is one I can actually say you kind of gave him a lot of rope and he just kept coming at you.
I was pestered into finally, and then I didn't do it publicly. I sent him several emails telling him exactly what I thought of what he'd been saying. Private emails, what he'd been saying, what he'd been writing, and what I wasn't happy about. And that I considered that our friendship was over and the matter was an end. And then he has to come back and do more blind items on his fucking shows. So yeah, the problem stems from Dave Meltzer will not tell these people the truth because he doesn't want the cool kids to be mad at him. That's why he's dressing like a goddamn 20-year-old every time you see a picture of him. Or he's giggling at all of their fucking allegedly funny antics. I'm sorry, he's got all the money he needs. He doesn't have to court people's favor. He doesn't have to suck up to people. And as I could understand if there was a goddamn horrible medical bills. He was on the verge of losing his house. His child was in an incubator. Yeah, okay, then lie and say bullshit to get a check or to make these people happy. But independently wealthy, could retire tomorrow, I assume, if he wanted to, certainly put in a full career's worth of work, and still just because he doesn't want to hurt these people's feelings? Fuck. And then he wants to hurt all his old friends' feelings to take up for this fucking shit. So, yes, Dave Meltzer, I've chalked up to another list of people who fucking disappoint me with their lack of principles, self-respect, and dignity.
Well, again, going back to my central thesis.
So what was this question?
Well, what I was going to say is your issues aren't about his reporting. You don't see things in the Observer because, it's his opinion-based stuff, especially on Twitter.
If he reports somebody was in such and such place at such and such time and did this, I still believe it. If his credibility is completely shot with me now on his opinion of performances.
That's what I was saying. And again, I think, if you read the Observer, he puts facts about AEW. If you just look on Twitter or listen to him sometimes, like you said, it does come across like someone doing PR work for AEW because he rushes to their defense even when he's not even involved in the discussion. He rushes to their defense.
Matt Sydal did jump off that thing and bust his ass, but at least he landed in the softest part of the ring. Everything's always got to end somehow flowery when they fucked up something else. I guess this week he'll probably write Matt wasn't dead.
I'll give you an example that always cracks me up. Is a while back there was an AEW pay-per-view, I guess, and I pointed out that one match with a wrestler that Dave personally likes, so Dave kind of gives a little bit of leeway to. I said it was the worst match on the show. I heard from people in the building. And his response was, I'm paraphrasing, it was the second least good match on the show.
I saw that somewhere. Yeah, the second least good match.
But anyway, my point is, and again, you and I don't see eye to eye on everything with Dave. I pointed out several things where you and I agree, but I like Dave. Dave's opinions are one thing. His Twitter behavior around those opinions are another thing. But what he reports should be looked at as what he reports. This long buildup has been for the questions we've been receiving have been about some of the comments directed towards Dave from various wrestlers. I'm going to play you some audio here. And then I have a second comment. Tell me if you think this is too far. Now, one of the things Dave has reported in terms of this WWE third-party situation is that one of the breaking points for WWE, allegedly, according to Dave, was that Lana had I believe a third-party sponsorship deal with an energy drink. I won't name the energy drink because we don't have a third-party sponsorship deal with them. But apparently they were paying her and she was promoting them on her various social media accounts, is the way I take it. I don't know for sure. This is what I'm putting together.
And what I've seen of her, she should be lucky that anybody wants her to do anything because she was rotten when she was Russian, and now that she's not Russian anymore, she's just a fake ex-Russian.
I thought she was good as a Russian.
Accent up, accent down. I forgot the accent. What the fuck? And then she's not Russian. I don't fucking know. I don't know. I never saw her do anything I was interested in. Go ahead.
Well, tell me if you think this is too far. This is her husband, the former Rusev. I believe his real name is it Miroslav Barnyashev?
Well, you do and you'll clean it up. I don't know.
Tell me what you think of his comments here about Dave's reporting.
Hey, what do you mean if CJ is okay? What's wrong with CJ? Oh, the fucker. The motherfucker. What's his freaking face?
Meltzer. God.
Once again, putting out bullshit out there. And I'm fucking tired of this fucking guy. Like, honestly, man.
Okay.
Like, get the F out of here. Like, who the F are you to speak things like that?
What?
Because first of all, those are not true. Those are all freaking bullshit lies. This man, one day he's going to burn in hell. Like, it's 100%. And it's okay. Like, hey, go Meltzer, go ahead, collect everybody's money, collect their $10, $20, whatever the hell you are. Collect all their money. But let me tell you, once you die, most likely you're going to go to hell because of all your lies that you've managed to say every single day about pretty much everybody.
Well, there are the opinions of the former Rusev.
We never heard what he said that he was mad about. What did Dave say that he was mad about?
I think he's referring to the idea that it was Lana's sponsorship deal with the energy drink company that caused WWE to finally put their foot down about third-party deals.
So that's why he should burn in hell?
Apparently he doesn't know how much an Observer subscription costs, that's for sure.
No, and apparently he can't remember what Dave's face is, but
Now, before you comment on that real quick, because this has just happened, this is one people have been sending in during the show.
But besides that, also, this fucking clown, he's another one of these fucking clowns that's never been in the wrestling business except in the WWE, so he has no idea what the fuck goes on in the wrestling business to begin with, but I would be intimidated if I were Dave Meltzer, if I wasn't a normal, intelligent, sane person and realized there was no such thing as hell. I'd be scared. Go ahead.
I don't know if he's the former Ryback or if he's current Ryback.
That fucking goof.
This guy.
That meathead.
I had to open an incognito window on this one because he's blocked me, apparently. Probably because I'm the conduit to Cornette. But anyway, here's his tweet from a couple hours ago. I firmly believe the world would be a better place without Dave Meltzer. He's the most dangerous kind of mark there is and puts out lies for profit, creating hate for people he dislikes. He makes money off other diseased marks, but does so in a horrible way. Again, to my comment earlier.
Well, but this is coming, and once again, I already did the preface where I don't really need to defend Dave anymore, but it's ridiculous coming from guys who have never been in the fucking wrestling business anywhere but in this system, so they have no idea what it's really like, calling other people marks. No. Dave's reporting has always been the most credible because he talks to everybody, and everybody wants to spill their guts because they want to look good. But he talks to everybody, and he goes to ridiculous lengths to verify shit when it's a factual shit. His opinions, he's lost his fucking mind on the type of wrestling that he likes, but he's not a fucking liar. He's a misguided modern wrestling fan, but he's not a liar.
So you don't think he should either burn in hell or that the world would be a better place without him, like these two have just said?
No, I think the world would be a better place without AEW entirely, and Dave would have a shit fit if he heard that. But I said the only reason we need to get rid of Dave is if he's standing in front of us getting rid of AEW. Then he's got to go for the greater good. But no, I would spare Dave, even though he has fucking lost his mind.
These are some ridiculous, outlandish takes. You have to admit.
And as I said, it's ridiculous because they're just Rusev or the other fucking guy. They're just lucky anybody's talking about him because let's face it, the fuck, we're not talking about Bruno Sammartino and goddamn Buddy Rogers here. Dave Meltzer knows more about the wrestling business than both of those guys put together when he's in a coma. But I hate to defend anybody anymore because then they come out with, I've already told Dave off, we will not speak again because he is partially responsible, in my opinion, for making it seem okay to do this kind of outlaw bullshit on wrestling shows, to like this kind of outlaw bullshit. The fans of this garbage that they're doing are emboldened by Dave Meltzer because he likes it. So they think he knows what he's talking about. So Dave has squandered his goodwill that he had with a lot of people in the wrestling business that knew he knew his shit. Bill Watts liked to talk to Dave Meltzer. A lot of people with good wrestling minds in years gone by like to talk to Dave Meltzer. But now it's embarrassing. And so, no, I don't think
Did he reach out to you for his Bob Armstrong story?
No. Well, I've already told him we're completely done because of all the shitty things that like you said, keeping needling me, talking about how I was out of touch and I obviously didn't get the greatness of AEW and Kenny Olivier's tremendous psychology that's over everyone's head and the little blind items. I told him in personal email. I didn't want to start cussing him because I'd never stopped. So I just did it by email. We're done. We are not friends. We will not speak again. You have fucking insulted me and friends of mine for the last time with this bullshit. And I view you as partially responsible for getting people to think that this fucking hogwash is acceptable. But that doesn't mean he's a fucking liar. I've even said that before. Shawn Michaels, great in-ring performer, prick at a pillhead, but I can't lie and say he wasn't a great fucking worker. Dave Meltzer, senile, soft in the head, and likes shit wrestling, but I can't call him a liar.
All right, well, one last question. Before we wrap up the show, we'll play a song or two. This was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Nicholas McGee in Benton Harbor, Michigan. I think he had a question on the last show.
Is that Putz's brother? Putz's brother, Nicholas? Putz, you know Putz McGee.
Putz McGee, your favorite name out there.
Yeah, his brother, Nicholas.
Well, here's Putz's question, or Nicholas's question, excuse me. I'm so sorry, Nicholas. Here's his question. Jim, do you think AEW has a chance of signing Brock Lesnar?
Oh, good God.
And would it be a welcoming addition to the company? Tony Khan's most recent comments regarding Brock Lesnar from the AEW All Out media conference, and here they are. I can't comment on that at this time, but I've enjoyed Brock's work for many years. He's a great fighter and a great wrestler. I don't think people talk enough about what a great worker Brock Lesnar is, and is one of the great working big men I've ever seen, and one of the great athletes in the history of the wrestling business, and I have so much respect for him. But yeah, I couldn't comment on that.
Yeah, so don't comment. But I've been a fan of yours for many years. You remember Joe Franklin?
Yeah.
The New York-based TV talk show host. What was he on? WOR, Channel 9, late at nights?
That's right.
Joe Franklin was on TV up there on local basis for what, 30 fucking years, right? And he had the whole showbiz patter down. He was very smooth. He came as a guest to oh, God damn it. It was the Hall of Fame in 96. I believe it was. Hall of Fame 96 or 97. One of the 96 was at the Marriott in New York. Anyway, yes. Point is, Marlena, Terry Runnels, was there with Goldust. She's all dressed up in her gold dress and everything, and Terry always looked hot. But she had literally been Marlena for 1 year at this point. And the only other appearances in wrestling she had made in front of the camera at that point were as Alexandria York of the York Foundation. When she got into business in 92, 93 in WCW, she was the makeup girl, and they put her in the business. So, and she was not Marlena, didn't look anything like Marlena. Joe Franklin walks up to her, and he's looking at the dress, and he sticks his hand out, and she shakes his hand. He says, I've been a fan of yours for many years, many years. It's like that old showbiz rat pack patter. I've been a fan of yours for many years. And I told her afterwards, I said, I would have blown snot if you'd have said, well, that's funny. I've only been doing this for 6 months. Anyway, go ahead. Many years.
That was it. That was the entire quote and the question about AEW potentially signing Brock Lesnar. Okay. Yes, there are going to be talks, I am sure, because that's what Brock does. If he can't get Vince to believe he's going to go back to the UFC, he might get him to believe he's going to go to AEW.
Would Brock Lesnar actually legitimately do that? I think donkeys will fly before Brock Lesnar signs with AEW. For one thing, Heyman wouldn't come with him. Heyman couldn't come with him. He's still under contract. Heyman wouldn't go to AEW even if he wasn't under contract. For the same reasons that he didn't go to TNA, the same reasons I wouldn't have anything to do with it, because even he couldn't help it, and it would make him look bad. Brock Lesnar would have absolutely no one to have a money match with there. Do you think that Brock Lesnar is going to suffer the presence of Fuck Taylor or the fucking dwarf little freak or any of these other guys on the, who's he going to, Jericho? Is Jericho going to want to work with Brock Lesnar and get thrown around like that? No, there's no money match. Tony Khan would have to pay him a fortune, which I'm sure he'd be willing to do, but I don't think Brock would accept it. I think Brock will play AEW against Vince if he can, but I don't know whether Vince will buy it, because Vince might say, you know what, Brock? Go ahead. And then if he says go ahead, then Brock will know if I appear for that company and get involved in any of this shit, unless they just build the whole thing around me and drop everything else, I will look like shit and my $1 million money drawing days will be over with. So unless he got all the money he ever wants for the rest of his life and complete creative control so that he would just be able to beat these fucks at random and show up when he wanted, no, he'll never go there. It would be insane for a guy like that that's worth that much money to do this. So no, I believe we're safe there, and so is the rest of the AEW roster. Because can you think of anybody that Brock Lesnar would want to, or anybody that he could have a competitive match with that people would want to see?
Marco Stunt.
On that roster. No, I said competitive.
No,
Seriously,
we've seen him and Moxley. I think they wrestled at WrestleMania and it was horrible. Him and Jericho wouldn't do it really.
No.
I don't think anyone at this point would care about him against Adam Page. I don't know how big a size difference that would be.
Can you imagine
him and Omega?
Brock Lesnar versus Twinkle Toes McFingerbang.
I would pay to see that.
I would pay any amount of money to see that. I guarantee you, Olivier would tell Brock a few of the things that he wanted to do, and Brock would just stand there and stare at him and then just snatch him and fucking suplex him out of his fucking boots. There would be no way in the world. Anybody else? Let's say the rest of the talent. Matt Hardy, if he still is alive. No, he don't want to work with Brock Lesnar.
Brody Lee.
Oh, God, I'd love to see that.
Cody.
That would probably be the only good match. That would probably be the only good matchup for Brock Lesnar in that entire company.
Actually, what about Lance Archer?
Ooh. Nope. Style clash.
I couldn't tell if that was a good ooh or a bad ooh.
No. Stay away, because Lance would not come out on the good end of that. He would not look good against Brock Lesnar. And plus nobody's going to buy it. Seriously, is anybody going to buy that?
Brian Cage.
Maybe in a few years, if Brian Cage was in another company and got over, then physically that would be good. But right now, they'd go to fuck their... Brock Lesnar is like the goddamn Rolling Stones, and Brian Cage is a garage band at this point. Can I make that any clearer?
Well, with all
Who would
that,
pay to see that?
Well, with all that said, though, if you were AEW, is it worth it to throw a bunch of money at Brock to get him in there for the attention? Is it worth it to actually do that?
Well, there's a case to be made that it would get you a lot of attention, but then if you've spent $5 million on something and every time he gets in the ring with one of your other guys, he either has to completely destroy him or elsewise it makes the whole company look bad, because anybody competitive against Brock from that roster would be a stretch, either because they're not big enough, obviously not good enough, or not over right now. So I think they'd spend a lot of money and get a lot of attention, and then people would look and go, oh, fuck, that shit sucks. So I don't really think, no, that wouldn't be a very good fucking idea to do. And once again, I don't want to violate any agreements I've made in the past with anybody.
No, please don't do that.
I wouldn't do that. But I would think it would have been a hell of an idea to give CM Punk all the millions of dollars that he wanted because he can actually work with these weasels. And he was a mainstream star and a name that would be recognized and could still know how to work with these outlaw weasels because he's from that world, but probably, hopefully, still stay over himself. Brock Lesnar would not end up, but they didn't throw any money at CM Punk. So why they would throw even more money at Brock Lesnar to come in and wipe the whole roster out, I have no fucking idea. Except that there's a mark in charge, so anything's possible. But Punk would have gotten the right kind of attention. Brock, no. God, no. The only two places Brock Lesnar has ever been in wrestling are OVW and WWE.
Well, and New Japan.
Okay, he was in New Japan for a little while. But the point I'm making is, what do you think he would think of this band of fucking ragtag circus freak gypsy looking fucks out of a fucking carnival walking up to him and he's expected to fucking grapple with? He'd laugh because he's only been in places where the shit was treated seriously and he didn't have to fucking do that shit, learn that shit, or learn how to fucking somehow or another work with these goofs without hurting himself. So it would be, and I'm sure he doesn't watch any wrestling, even the shows that he's on. I don't even know if they have television as far back in the woods as he lives in Saskatoon or wherever the fuck it is. So I guarantee you he's never seen anything like AEW. And wouldn't want to see any more once he saw the first part. That would be talk about a bad fit. I can't stress that enough.
Okay, well, with that, the drive-thru is closed.
Yeah.
I'm trying to end on a good one here.
Stop mocking me!
All right. Listen.
Who the hell do you think you are?
The great Brian Last. Now, listen, guys, we have a lot.
Rue this day. But go on, start ruing.
I certainly will rue this day. We have a ton of questions that have come in recently, like we always do. We will try to, if we have some time, we'll get some on the experience, but otherwise, next week, we are back with a regular edition of the drive-thru. We will jam it with as many questions
It's not even next week now, it's this week.
I guess so. Well,
it'll be out Friday.
No, the experience will be out Friday. I'm talking about if we don't get questions on the experience, they'll be on the next drive.
Well, yes. But if we don't get them on okay, I see what you're saying with that. But the experience is this week and the drive-thru's next week.
That's right.
And then there's no fucking experience the following week because it's my birthday and I'm neither watching these programs nor recording on my birthday. So it looks like an on the bus is coming up for the weekend of September 17th and those environs.
We will talk off air about what we're doing.
Off air about
exactly.
that. I just told you that. Yeah.
Of course, the Jim Cornette Experience debuts Friday wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And of course, you can find classic episodes of the drive-thru and the experience on patreon.com/Cornette. $5 a month gets you in the door and access to the archives. Over a year and a half worth of shows up right now from the very beginning in November of 2013 up until the spring of 2015, with new episodes added each and every Sunday night. We just put up Jim's Ron Wright tribute with Les Thatcher. Check that out today. Great episodes going up each and every week. Patreon.com/Cornette. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. tinyurl.com/official Corny YouTube. Or just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. We are about to pass 160,000 subscribers on our march to 1 million. Be one of them today.
My feet are getting sore from marching. Hurry it up, folks.
Check out all the videos as well as the amazing and exclusive Travis Heckel artwork. Once again, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. You can follow Jim on Twitter @TheJimCornette. You can follow me on Twitter @GreatBrianLast. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast at 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Cornette's Collectibles at jimcornette.com. The store will be closing for 2 weeks on September 15th, so get all your orders in today.
But fortunately, everything goes back to normal at the post office the end of this week. So we're going to be shipping shit as swiftly as shit can be shipped.
Is there an official reopening date? Is it October 1st?
That's what I said before. Sounds good. I'll stick with it.
October 1st. So get your orders in today or wait a little while and return October 1st, JimCornette.com. The drive-thru is brought to you by the Law Office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until Friday on The Experience, and next Monday, back on our normal day with the drive-thru, for Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally-ho!
Ho, ho, ho.